people, not to enrich the privileged few. Madam Presiding Officer, sadly, I must say what we are seeing under this administration is not occasional missteps. It is a pattern, a deliberate, calculated erosion of our procurement safeguards. According to the Office of Procurement Regulation, several, or more than 50% of the THA divisions are non-compliant with their obligations under the law. I want to repeat that again for Tobagonians. According to the Office of the Procurement Regulation, more than 50% of THA divisions are now non-compliant with their obligations under the law. And let me name and shame some of them. Procurement offender number 1, Division of Infrastructure, and a close second, Division of Education, and Division of Tourism. And of course, ambulance, the home of Ambulance Gate, the Tobago Regional Health Authorities. No surprise that they are there. But Madam Presiding Officer, let's put that into plain language. The very bodies responsible for administrating over our health, roads, schools, and economy are operating outside the legal framework meant to protect us all. And the result speaks for themselves. Under the Division of Infrastructure, $300 million, more than $300 million expended in contracts were handed out, largely to contractors from outside of Tobago. Some even with no track record, no ties to the island, not OPR registered. And at least in one case, they didn't even have any experience in road construction. Imagine a roofing contractor was given a road project. Imagine that. But predictably, it failed. So this roofing contractor was given a $54 million contract where they were being paid $2,700 per ton to install and place hot mix. And we were told that $1,400 per ton that was being paid before was corrupt. But this wicked administration went ahead and paid double the price to this contractor, $2,700 per ton.
Minority Leader, I'm going to caution you about your words describing members of this House. Please be guided by the standing orders. Continue.
I would replace wicked with heartless.
Please be cautioned. I'm cautioning you about the words that you are using. Please continue.
Madam Presiding Officer, I move on. But let me tell the people of Tobago about this very interesting contract, $54 million roofing contractor, no experience. And we were told that was an emergency road. So for some reason, that road had to happen, else Tobagonians would not survive between 2021 to 2025. But guess what? That road has not been built, and we continue to function here in Tobago. Yet, a contractor was handpicked and given a contract for $54 million to which he couldn't even start. Let that sink in, Tobago people. But, Madam Presiding Officer, I'll give you a second example that is even worse. And I've described it as the greatest procurement scandal in the history of this very 45-year-old institution called the Tobago House of Assembly. And this has to do with the procurement of some ambulances, Madam Presiding Officer. And today, for the people of Tobago, I've received from a whistleblower a dossier of documents that lays bare the case, Madam Presiding Officer, that if ever I had any doubt that there was unlawful, illegal practices involved in this procurement, these documents satisfy my doubts. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to share with the people of Tobago what happened. Walk them through very quickly. So, the Tobago Regional Health Authority, over time, would have recognized that the ambulance fleet was depleting and embarked on a process to acquire new ambulances. That process went ahead in 2022, and based on the evaluation they received, the evaluation committee determined that there was no satisfactory bids, and that procurement process was closed. Curiously, the Tobago Regional Health Authority then restarted another process, and they coined it, their favorite word, emergency procurement, because they love emergencies. But the law is clear as to what is an emergency. The law says it's something that you cannot predict. You must not know. You must not have prior, it must be force majeure, like a natural disaster, something that cannot be planned for or predetermined. That is an emergency. Urgency, Madam Presiding Officer, is not an emergency according to the law. However, they went ahead and coined this an emergency procurement. And quite interestingly, this procurement process took on where quotations received from one bidder in January, then a next bidder in February, and then one more bidder comes along at the very end. So the evaluation committee continued to change, but you're treating with the same process. So different people evaluating the same thing. Yet, you have an evaluation sheet that comes to us with names, but absolutely no signature. No signature to validate that what is on this sheet is actually what took place.
Minority Leader, I'm on my feet. Please have a seat. I didn't see a notice from you to read from other documents in the House. You didn't seek permission to...
I'm not reading, I'm showing it to the public.
And I'm telling you, if you have any intent of reading from documents that you did not seek my leave for, you can't. Thanks.
I am not reading, I am simply reporting to the people of Tobago what I know as fact. Madam, and I take full responsibility for the statements I make here today. So if they have any issues, they can send me to the privileges.
Member, continue.
Thank you. Madam Presiding Officer, so, as a matter of fact, no signature on the evaluation report, but quite interestingly, the successful bidder was the bidder that submitted their bid the last. That bidder had the most expensive quote. That bidder was also the least experienced, absolutely actually had zero experience in supplying ambulances. And quite interestingly, one of the bidders that was bypassed was the bidder who actually supplied the previous Ford ambulances and was also supplying again another Ford ambulance at $1 million TT. We had a bid coming in from Amalgamated, and they had a letter of support from North Central Regional Health Authority saying that we can confidently recommend this provider because we are utilizing their service and we have absolutely no issue. So you have a letter of support, and guess what? For those two ambulances, it was costing $1.4 million, an average of $700,000 per ambulance. Madam Presiding Officer, would you believe that having all that information before them, the TRHA, who continues, and this administration who continues to tell us they do have no money, decided to take the most expensive option out of the two, the least experienced. And here it gets even more interesting. You know what the brand, the make and model that is quoted. Madam Presiding Officer, would you believe that is not what came to the shores of Trinidad and Tobago? On the quotation of this provider that was successful, they said they were supplying Isuzu brand. So of course the evaluators would have gotten excited because we all know about Isuzu in this part of the country. But like if you were shopping on Shein or Temu, what you ordered was not what was delivered and what we received. We were forced, no pun intended, the TRHA received forced ambulance vehicles. That was no way on the quotation. And what is even interesting as well, so okay, the quotation was for 2, so everybody quoted for 2. Curiously, the award of the contract was for 4 ambulances, but you quoted for 2. And we all know how economies of scales go. If I know I'm quoting for 12 ambulances, I may take down the price a little bit because economies of scale, I may be able to produce it at a cheaper price. But what they requested was 2. They awarded for 4. And at no point in time thereafter, there was any evidence of a variation to the process. But you know what happened, Madam Presiding Officer? They went ahead and purchased 12. And in purchasing 12, they didn't even receive 1. But they paid for 4 up front. Then they went again and paid for another 4. That time 2 years passed and they still didn't get 1. Madam Presiding Officer, you understand what I'm saying here? This is what this secretary over here boasted about: accountability, transparency, and good governance. If that is good governance, I don't want to see bad. And I hope, because before we are TPP or PNM, we are Tobagonians. And if you all are genuine in saying that the resources you have is not sufficient, every one of you should be extremely concerned. Because if that is not the definition of wastage and mismanagement, I do not know what is. And that's why I've coined it the greatest procurement scandal in the history of this Tobago House of Assembly. And the final thing I want to raise is that between the intervening period, January 6th to April, at some point in April, the TRHA operated without a board. And based on the laws, the TRHA Act, the CEO is only authorized to pay up to a maximum of $1 million. But curiously, a payment for the 50% down payment on 4 ambulances was made by that very same CEO. So the question we all have to ask ourselves is, who authorized that payment? Who authorized that payment? Madam Presiding Officer, the documents are here and they will be delivered to the relevant authority, and I will simply say, let the chips fall where they may. Madam Presiding Officer, I have one more example to show. And it seems that as if TRHA is a hotbed for wastage and mismanagement. That process cost the Tobagonians $25 million, by the way. $17 million for the purchase, and we are also leasing in the meantime while these ambulances try to find a way to be fit for purpose. Because up to last night, I understand it broke down in Goodwood. Up to last night. While we paid 17 million, 2 years have elapsed, going on 3. We are leasing ambulances to the tune of $6 million. So we have paid 17 million and then 6 million. That is over $23 million we are spending just on the procurement and servicing of ambulances. Madam Presiding Officer, and then there's the incinerator. The incinerator, Madam Presiding Officer, because you know, in this space, the more you talk is the more you receive. And I want to thank the honest, diligent, responsible Tobagonians who are saying that they are fed up of the wastage, the mismanagement, and in fact, the corruption. And I'm receiving the information. So we received an incinerator, paid $6 million for that incinerator. Madam Presiding Officer, that incinerator came as early as it was received in Trinidad and Tobago in last year, somewhere last year, probably mid-August or so. Madam Presiding Officer, do you know since that incinerator arrived, right in Tobago, it has not been used? We have paid $6 million for an incinerator to burn biohazardous waste. And for some reason, that incinerator is not being used. But what's happening? While that is not being used, we are paying a company millions to burn the very biohazardous waste that we purchase an incinerator to treat with. And I understand the size of the incinerator is like a barbecue pit, meaning in terms of the volume, it burns little to nothing, yet we are paying this provider millions. And I understand even better solutions were advanced, and the question we all have to ask ourselves why it wasn't taken up. But when you look at the procurement to get to the person who we are leasing that service from, you would understand why. That was a sole select process, and no one knows where the process started and where it ended. But that too, Madam Presiding Officer, will be reported. Renting $300,000 a month. And what they are saying, it's supposed to be a volume-based kind of process, but they are not allowing them to measure how much, what is the volume, what is the quantity that has been burnt. They are not allowing them, so they're just paying them a flat fee. So whether they burn 10 pounds of biohazardous waste or no pounds, they get $300,000 per month. We could have done by another incinerator by now. And that is what is happening, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, the list isn't exhaustive, but we have the $185 million housing project awarded to a contractor who failed on a design-build finance at Lamy Road. So you failed to build a $25 million road, but we reward you with $185 million. And that is how we are treating with procurement in this administration. What is happening with the Bloody Bay Blue Food Village? Last time I checked, still unfinished. We all remember the stage in the sea. Almost $3 million built. Contractor, how did you get the contractor? No process. Just call somebody to put on boulders. And that is how procurement is done. No study. I asked for the study since 2022. I was promised that we'll get the coastal study that informed the design. Up to this day, we have not received that study. Yet we spent $3 million of taxpayers' money on a stage to nowhere. That is washing away with the sea slowly but surely. And then, of course, you will recall I raised issues with the school repair program that is being managed at EID Cut. And then the questions with the rent and lease. How did we move from $10 million to $30 million in 1 year? How? And this is the same administration that is telling us day on, day in, they have no money. Every one of these tells the same story, Madam Presiding Officer. No competition, no transparency, no accountability. What's really at stake? When procurement is compromised, it's not just money we lose its trust, its opportunity, and its hope, Madam Presiding Officer. Young Tobagonians want jobs. Young Tobagonians want jobs, Madam Presiding Officer. Contractors, local-based Tobago contractors want a fair shot. Nurses and healthcare providers want their equipment. Parents want safe schools. But instead of getting value for money, they are getting slick PR, poor delivery, and billions disappearing with no meaningful impact. This is the tragedy of this administration's procurement legacy. Not just that they broke the rules, Madam Presiding Officer, but they broke the trust of the very people who voted for change. So I know they would come, they would try to say that the PNM did this and the PNM did that, but ultimately what you must remember is that the people voted for change, not exchange. Madam Presiding Officer, what I pledge to the people of Tobago is that we will not let these procurement infractions go unchallenged. And at every turn and at every opportunity, once I have the information, we would send them to the relevant lawful places where we can have independent investigations, such as the Office of the Procurement Regulation, the Auditor General Office, and the TTPS, especially the ACIB. The ACIB is very interested in what is happening in Tobago right now. Because Tobago deserves better. Tobago deserves better leadership that follows the law, respect the people, and deliver results with no excuses. And Madam Presiding Officer, you know, while they inflate the debt and they talk about to suit their narrative, thanks. While they inflate the debt to suit their narrative, Madam Presiding Officer, what they never acknowledge is the real legacy they inherited, a legacy of delivery by the PNM. Say what you want about the PNM, we're not perfect, we made mistakes, but the legacy left behind was not just liability like you'll want the people of Tobago to believe, not just the whatever figure you all quote. It wasn't just that. It was capacity, tangible long-term investment, such as the Cove Eco-Industrial Park, the Studley Park Enterprise Limited, as examples that they now benefit from, Madam Presiding Officer, even as they pretend that they are the architects. Madam Presiding Officer, I will now demonstrate to them and the people of Tobago of what real delivery looks like. The PNM created a land bank worth billions. Let me repeat that. The PNM, through its deliberate policy of acquiring Tobago indigenous estates, created a land bank of over billions, including Pigeon Point, Corland, Friendship, Culloden, and Adelphi estates. We formed the Tobago Tourism Agency, which laid the foundation for structured professional destination marketing and product development. We revitalized the THTI, thereby ensuring our young people had a pipeline into hospitality and tourism sector, as well as using it as a strategic platform for laying the foundation for the University of Tobago. Housing development at Roxborough, Blenheim, and Adventure, plus land distribution at Corland, Belgarden, Shervan, and Friendship, delivering dignity and ownership to Tobagonians. Madam Presiding Officer, we built the Shore Park Multipurpose Complex, a flagship facility for cultural expressions, performing arts, and indoor sport. Never mind, it is the best thing since sliced bread for the Chief Secretary Office. We built modern police stations, Madam Presiding Officer, at Shervan and Roxborough, as well as a spanking new fire station in the member for Roxborough-Argyle's district at Roxborough, ensuring security and public safety in underserved areas. Let us not forget the construction, groundbreaking construction of the Roxborough Hospital, which is a vital expansion in healthcare access, especially for the people residing on the eastern side of Tobago. And Madam Presiding Officer, the A&R Robinson International Airport Terminal, the most significant infrastructural project in Tobago in decades. Let me repeat that. The A&R Robinson International Airport Terminal, do your analysis, do your math. It is the most significant infrastructural project in Tobago in decades. And that is an undisputed fact, championed and delivered by a PNM administration at the national level. The same PNM that's all they're saying don't like Tobago. The same PNM that's all they're saying wicked. The same PNM placed Tobago's tourism interests first. Madam Presiding Officer, if this is what they call nothing, if this is what you are calling nothing, because that is what you hear from them, all this I just listed, they are saying to Tobagonians, comes down to nothing. And if they are saying this is nothing, I challenge them, Madam Presiding Officer, to match it, to top it, and to even beat it. After nearly 4 years in office and over $10 billion spent, Madam Presiding Officer, there is not one transformational project that I personally can recall, conceived, funded, and delivered on their own. Not one. That finish, eh? What they have done is rename things, rebrand the institutions, recommission our achievements, and then claim credit in press releases and photo ops. They don't even have the courtesy to invite us. They haven't built anything. They have borrowed both credit and credibility. Madam Presiding Officer, while the PNM was laying the physical, social, and economic foundation for a modern Tobago, this administration has been quite busy laying blame. The difference is clear. The PNM delivered with vision, with discipline, while husbanding its limited financial resources. What they have done, Madam Presiding Officer, is deliver sound bites, slogans, and excuses, and of course, shape the narrative. Madam Presiding Officer, just imagine this overzealous Secretary of Finance has the unmitigated gall under Section 1.7 of a budget document to state that their administration was able to achieve in 3.5 years what PNM administration did not do in 21 years. Nothing could be further from the truth. It is a statement bordering on being political hyperbolic and misleading. Let's separate the facts from their fanciful imagination. In the first budget presentation, this is what they said that they were going to do in respect of schools construction. They said they were going to complete all of the pre-construction works and requirements for the construction of the new Scarborough Secondary Smart School at Bacolet. They even placed a sign there, Madam Presiding Officer. They said they were going to complete the assessment of the other secondary schools for the upgrade to Smart School designation. They said they were going to develop and design a plan for the construction of a new special school for students in the speech, language, and hearing impairment issues. They also said that they were going to construct a school for the deaf. As we gather here today, none of the above has occurred. Additionally, Madam Presiding Officer, no mention in their 4-year review presentation was made of these projects. So the question, and I hope the Secretary for Education can address, is what is happening with these projects that was not listed as priority in the presentation of the Secretary for Finance. But let's briefly look at PNM's record in respect of the construction of schools and the investment of our education system. The PNM constructed the Mason Hall Secondary School. We constructed, yes, we go and check the headstone. we constructed the Goodwood Secondary School. I know the delivery hurt. We constructed the Speyside Secondary School. And to my alma mater, they upgraded the Bishop's High School. They built the brand new Scarborough Methodist Primary School. They built the St. Andrews Anglican Primary School, the Scarborough RC School, upgrades to primary school across the length and breadth of Tobago, the Wim Anglican Primary School, upgrades to Hope Anglican Primary School, upgrades to Plymouth Anglican Primary School. Madam Presiding Officer, the list is not an exhaustive one. Madam Presiding Officer, in terms of public buildings, I shall identify to you some of their proposed plans to construct public buildings. Some of these were construction of the Tobago cruise ship berths, construction of the entomology lab, construction of 2 market/food hubs, one in Mason Hall and one in Roxborough, construction of the veterinary diagnostic laboratory to cater to the health needs of livestock on the island, construction of a $300 million water park at Friendship Estate by Synergy Water. Construction will begin on a 500-room 5-star hotel at Killigwin in October of 2023. Construction of the city of Roxborough. Remember that one? Remember from Roxborough, Argyle? You remember the city of Roxborough? Yeah. The above-mentioned projects have all been stillborn. Under the PNM administration, Madam Presiding Officer, the following are some of the public buildings constructed: the Roxborough Administrative Complex, the Bell Garden Community Center, the Moriah Health Center, the Scarborough Health Center, the Canaan Health Center, the Scarborough Library Facility, the Victor E. Booth Financial Complex, the Scarborough Market, the Micro Malls, Adventure, Argyle, Signal Hill, Charlottesville, the multipurpose centers, Bethesda, Lowlands, John Dale, Palliative, Buku, the Roxborough Hospital, Blackrock Pan Theatre, Buku Integrated Facility, Shore Park Cultural Complex, Kendall Aquatics Facility, the Pavilion at Pigeon Point, Shervan Office Complex, better known as Millshield, Office of the Chief Secretary Building. In addition to the above buildings that we constructed, we also did upgrades to many buildings and sites. Some of these were Scarborough Methodist Church, Fort King George Heritage Park, St. Andrews Parish Hall. You see, Madam Presiding Officer, it's important that we remind Tobagonians of what was delivered under the PNM, because if we allow those on the other side to write our history, they will write a history of nothing. When, look at the list, and the member was once part of that phenomenal delivery, member from Bagatelle Bacalet, part of the PNM that delivered all those good things to the people of Tobago. Sure you missed those days. Madam Presiding Officer, the following was some of the plans. You still have some time. Your screening finishing about next week. And I understand we have some members that would not be going back, so we may consider you all. Madam Presiding Officer, the following were some of the plans by this administration that never saw the light of day. The Friendship Connector Road, a priority project that so far we were told the contractor was not to be paid any money until the project was completed. Yet in the dead of the night, on All Year's night actually, or morning perhaps, a check of $32 million was advanced to this very fortunate contractor. The Bad Rock Roadway Alignment and Improvement Project, which is very important, by the way. The jetty at Plymouth and Cove, the fishermen still waiting, representative for Plymouth. Jetty at Palliative, Arnosville Road, completion of infrastructural works on the Lamy Road to Roxborough. All of these are still undelivered. Under the PNM administration, though, Madam Presiding Officer, We delivered on several completed roads. And one of the things I can say about this, which it pleases me, because I always give the example of Wim. Wim was a village where it was basically one way in and one way out. When the P&M stepped on the scene, there are now multiple exit points out of Wim. You can go through the Center Street Road, you can go through Idlewild, you can go through Backhill, you can go through Philadelphia, and all of this was done by a very visionary P&M. So we constructed roads, Wim Crescent Connector Road, Philadelphia Connector Road, Hermitage Connector Road, Bell Garden Connector, Orange Hill Connector, Gardenside Connector, Botanic Connector, Annesville Connector, Signal Hill Roundabout, Shaw Park Roundabout, Hawkins Cure Roundabout, major rehabilitation works on 2 kilometers of the Claude Noel Highway, Lansford to Charlottesville Link Road, Smithfield Connector Road, Mason Hall to Lecoto Link Road, Farm Road in Mason Hall, major road works to Mount St. George to Studley Park, Windward Road, Northside Road, Rockleyville to Providence, Easterfield Branch Road. Madam Presiding Officer, the P&M constructed the following bridges: Plymouth, Blenheim, and I remember Plymouth. Plymouth was a one-way bridge. You had to actually literally wait for the next vehicle that is coming opposite to you to enter and pass before you can enter that bridge. It was the P&M who widened and expanded that bridge to a 2-lane bridge. Blenheim, same thing. Bloody Bay, Goldsboro, Lambeau, and Thompson Bridge, Madam Presiding Officer. What bridges have you constructed in the last 3.5 years? I challenge you to name one. Madam Presiding Officer, in terms of the agricultural sector, just as in other sectors, the promises were many. The question remains, however, in respect of the following: what has been achieved? They promised the construction of abattoirs at Mason Hall and Kendall, upgrade of the tissue culture laboratory, construction of a veterinary diagnostic laboratory, the establishment of the Mason Hall and the Roxborough Food and Transportation Hub, the upgrade of tractor pool, the establishment of mega farms, establishment of the root and tuber crop planting material repository, invasive plant control program. What has happened to these programs, Madam Presiding Officer? We have heard or seen neither. Conversely, Madam Presiding Officer, under the former P&M, the following represents substantial achievements. Yes, we had challenges with the individual companies under. We had challenges. You were on one of the board, and you would have administered over one of those challenge boards. But we had challenges, and that is admitted. But we went ahead and treated with those challenges by creating TADCO. Construction of new facilities at Mount Irving, Bell Garden, Castara, Lambeau, Scarborough, Pigeon Point, Delaford, Charlottesville, and Studley Park. Reconstruction of the Scarborough Market, construction of the now famously called Food Hub building at Shaw Park. We piloted a food project at Corland. Established the Youth Apprenticeship Program in Agriculture, YAPA. We introduced the Home Gardening Initiative and Eat Local campaign. Development of agricultural access roads in various areas. The strategic use of URP labor force for agricultural production. And let's talk sports, Madam Presiding Officer. As far back as 2022, they indicated plans to do the following. They said they were going to construct or complete the works at Bacalet Indoor Sporting Facility. They did also said they were going to complete the Goodwood Recreational Ground Pavilion. They said they were going to construct works at the Charlottesville Community. They were going to complete the works at the Charlottesville Community Center Multipurpose Facility. They said they were also going to complete the installation of lights at Louisville. I think they probably on somewhere in completion of that one. They did say they would complete phase 2 construction works at the Corland Beach Sporting Arena. The first phase appears to me even incomplete, much less the second phase. Construction of a pump track at Plymouth. Renovation works on the Pembroke Youth Center, Pembroke, and I put Pembroke in inverted because the only new youth center I know in that location is at Bell Garden, but perhaps I stand guided. Madam Presiding Officer, the fencing, Madam Presiding Officer, the fencing at the Canaan Bonacourt ground, the Bell Garden field will undergo resurfacing. The Bell Garden field will undergo resurfacing. I went to play football there, and all I saw was, more sheep and goat and more dirt. No resurfacing. District fund at 150,000. I am still waiting to see this district fund because, Madam Presiding Officer, in the absence of the district fund, I have before me a curious, I came into possession of a curious letter written by an assemblyman. And this assemblyman is writing to the secretary, subject request for sponsorship to host a community activity. And this assemblyman, signed by the assemblyman, is asking for $20,000 to advance his political fortunes in his district by hosting this football tournament. And based on the regulations, based on the Integrity Commission, I know one ought not use their public office to advance their private interests or political interests. And therefore, this matter will be referred to the Integrity Commission to investigate and to come to a place as to whether the assemblyman misbehaved in public office. Madam Presiding Officer, and I continue, under the PNM, we can boast of the following. We constructed upgraded hard courts in areas such as Goodwood, Roxborough, Wim, Dusty Park, Mason Hall, Montgomery, Plymouth, Mount Pleasant, Calder Hall, Signal Hill, Patience Hill, and Black Rock. Construction of the Wim Sporting Facility at Back Hill. We constructed a vision of a very dedicated Assemblyman Claudia Groom-Duke, and I continue to remind you all what was the purpose of that facility. When that facility was envisioned, the village of Wim was on. When that facility was envisioned, the village of Wim was experiencing some significant criminal activity. And therefore, the area representative, along with one Miss Melva Jofield, came together with the idea that we can advance sport and physical activity as a real tool against crime fighting. And that is the birth, that is the genesis of that multi-purpose facility that stands as the pride of Backhill and Wim. So whoever wants to come and now and take credit, I tell you, keep your hands off that project. Madam Presiding Officer, we also renovated the Sid Gray complex, construction of offices and other facilities at Shore Park. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to talk about the missed opportunities. Because you see, this administration is now requesting 5.9%. That is basically in the 5.9% of 63.5 billion. They believe the budget projected to be 63.5 billion. Listening to them, they feel that this is something to celebrate. But let's deal with the facts, Madam Presiding Officer. The projected national budget currently stands at 63.5 billion. And we saw what they received as the supplementary, only 32 million. But, so at 5.9%, Tobago is asking for something around $3.71 billion. But what is curious, Madam Presiding Officer, this is the same people, the same administration that told the UNC, their friends in Trinidad, to reject a package of PNM-led autonomy bills that the PNM voted in support for, that guaranteed Tobago a minimum of 6.8% enshrined. You know what enshrined means? Into law. It is placed in law. It cannot be arbitrarily taken away. not just for 1 year, but for continuous periods. So let's do the math, let's do the arithmetic. 6.8% of $63.5 billion is $4.31 billion that had this administration allowed or encouraged their friends, the UNC, to vote with the PNM to pass, Tobago would have been receiving, without even having to beg, $4.318 billion, Madam Presiding Officer. Instead, they prefer to go and beg to see if they can get $3.71 billion. That's a loss of over $571 million this year alone. And you know what that means, Madam Presiding Officer? That could have built the Scarborough Secondary School. They didn't even need a loan, that extra funds. That could have done all the roads that the member for Scarborough Mount Grace has complained about. That could have treated all the marketing challenges that we have in tourism. And most of all, that could have funded education for more and more of our young Tobagonian academic students who are struggling to make ends meet in terms of paying tuition and all of that. We rejected that. They, actually, let me rephrase, they rejected that, Madam Presiding Officer, in preference for, as the minister is now saying, he will consider your request. You are a situation where he would have had to, must to, bound to, give you what you wanted, but you prefer to go and beg. Let's see how that would work out for you all. Madam Presiding Officer, they traded Tobago's rightful share for political showmanship, and $571 million walked out the door with them and disappeared into thin air. Madam Presiding Officer, and this is from their leader who has already spent $10 billion in 4 years with no stadium completed, no housing boom, no youth employment revolution, and no economic transformation to show. The member for Lansford Palliative Speyside didn't just misstep, Madam Presiding Officer. He betrayed a generation. That is what he did. Madam Presiding Officer, this is the legacy of the billion-dollar man, the member who gives Tobago press releases when he should be giving us progress reports. The Secretary boasted that the public sector employment dropped from 70% to 54%. This would be something to celebrate if it were true. But, Madam Presiding Officer, if you admit that the private sector has not grown and the THA has employed even more persons, they said 21 persons in the 10-on 10-off program, that statistic tells a darker truth. A key implication of this statistic is that thousands of Tobagonians have either lost their permanent jobs or have migrated. That is what the statistics is saying. What did we get in return? In excess of 2,100 low-wage, 10-on 10-off temporary jobs, paying our Tobago people, our dignified, valued Tobago people, something like $2,000 per month. That is what they think of the average Tobagonian. That is what Tobagonians are worth in your eyes. $2,000 per month, while your favored contractors walk away with the ham, the lamb, and the jam. Madam Presiding Officer, the numbers they parade are not signs of progress. They are symptoms of pain, agony, and despair. Every percentage drop in public sector employment under this administration represents a real person. That is the over 300-400 people you all terminated without just cause. And the courts the industrial court is now dealing with those matters. And even when the industrial court gives a judgment, imagine that. And this is why, Madam Presiding Officer, I had to use strong words in describing this administration. Because after you have sent home persons who are working with the THA, some beyond 10 years, and that is the only income they know, after all that, without any proper remuneration, any proper severance, when the court finally says, hey, You erred. The process you embarked on was not in keeping with proper industrial relations practices. We are ordering you to give the people some kind of settlement, severance. And this chief secretary who says, and I'll leave that alone. But the chief secretary, you have a family. You have a family, chief secretary. These people have families too. And this is how you are treating your fellow Tobagonians? Tobagonians will judge you, chief secretary. Tobagonians will remember you. Madam Presiding Officer, we were told only 22% of Tobago's labor force holds tertiary qualifications, and the secretary now aims for 30% by 2030. But once again, no plan, no articulated strategy, no details, just vague ambition couched in rehearsed rhetoric. Meanwhile, more than 75% of our local labor force still holds only primary or secondary education. That's not just a minor gap. That's a situation that requires urgent intervention. Yet, nothing is being done to address declining CXC and CAPE performance, falling tertiary enrollment, or the increasing hopelessness among our youth. Let me be clear, Madam Presiding Officer, this is not a failure of our teachers or principals. They are doing their best with the little that they have. This is a failure of political leadership, a failure of the secretary, and a failure of this administration, Madam Presiding Officer. And while the very educators holding the system together continue to work under strain, the promises remain unfulfilled. They have said that they will regularize contract teachers. It has not happened. Gratuities are still unpaid, notwithstanding increased transfers from the National Treasury when compared to previous administrations. School maintenance still leaves a lot to be desired. Madam Presiding Officer, where is the once vocal tutor rep? Where is he? The councillor who now sits in this house and who appears to have only found his voice under the PNM administration. We ask him, respectfully that is, to find that voice again. Because the issues haven't disappeared. They remain live and relevant. They've grown even deeper, more painful, and more unacceptable. Madam Presiding Officer, perhaps the real anchor is this administration that refuses and neglects to provide the requisite visionary leadership designed to generate the quantum leap necessary for Tobagonians to take their rightful place among the world's population. But where they have failed, a PNM administration will act. We'll act swiftly and decisively because we understand what the development of our people and the education especially is about. Our new PNM administration will immediately take steps to have Cabinet create positions on teaching establishment that are currently being filled by contract teachers, thereby paving the way for these teachers to transition. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, for your protection. I will be seeking some injury leave. Madam Presiding Officer, we will launch targeted interventions to lift CXC and CAPE performance, starting in the schools that need it the most. We would expand scholarship support and technical training for students. Most importantly, we will continue the establishment of the University of Tobago, a center of academic and skills-based excellence designed by Tobagonians, for Tobagonians, as well as for foreign students. Not another empty slogan, but a serious investment in our people's potential. Because, you see, Madam Presiding Officer, we in the PNM do not see Tobagonians as votes to manage. We see them as minds to empower, families to uplift, and a future to build. Madam Presiding Officer, and while we are on the subject of missed opportunities, I find it passing strange that the Secretary made no mention of the paltry $32 million supplementary allocation from their friends in the UNC. Let us not forget, Madam Presiding Officer, this is the same Chief Secretary who, in his last two budget presentations, described previous allocations of $100 million in 2022, 60 million in 2023, and 50 million in 2024 as fiscal wickedness. Now that they have received even less from their friends, there is a deafening silence. Haven't heard one squeak from the, what he called himself, the Tobago, the King Gandhi. That is the correct phrase? We haven't heard one squeak from our dear friend from Lansfamy, Speyside, Pallitive. Madam Presiding Officer, as Minority Leader, I say this respectfully but firmly to the Chief Secretary. The least I expect from you, Mr. Chief Secretary, and your supporters is the same energy you all had for the central government under the PNM when those previous allocations were made. Just keep that same energy. Just keep the same energy. Because with friends like these, with friends like those that you are keeping in Trinidad, who needs enemies? Madam Presiding Officer, perhaps the real anchor holding back this island is not our geography or our size, but an administration that refuses to lead with vision and conviction. Madam Presiding Officer, let us talk about the missed opportunities in tourism and the creative arts. We've heard once again that tourism is a top priority. But after 4 years, what do we have to show? There's no new hotels, no expanded airlift, no major brand partnership, no new sites and attraction, no transformation, just talk. And the numbers speak volumes, Madam Presiding Officer. Air arrivals for the period up January to April is down by 3.3%. Sea arrivals, Madam Presiding Officer, down by 7.1%. International arrivals, down by 9.8%. Even cruise arrivals, which we used to be bombarded by every month, you're getting a new historic, groundbreaking arrivals. This is down by a whopping 46.1%. Over 33,000 passengers lost. That is the legacy of our very washed councillor and secretary. Washed, not unwashed, washed.
Members?
Yeah, washed.
Members.
These aren't seasonal dips. This is the collapse of a sector under failed leadership. TTL was constructively dismantled. Just imagine, we let out of our hands one of the most qualified tourism CEOs in the entire Caribbean. That gentleman that was unceremoniously frustrated out of TTL is now back in his homeland, driving tourism numbers in St. Lucia. Just imagine that. And what is left for Tobago? We have been floundering like Dora the Explorer, looking for a CEO and only acting after acting. We were told since 2023 of May that a CEO will be confirmed. We are now in 2025 of June. And the lowest hanging fruit, which is just to find a proper CEO, even that the secretary couldn't achieve. Even that. We are still using actors in the sector that we say will make Tobago the greatest little island. Are we really serious, or are we just playing? Muddy pot, perhaps? Madam Presiding Officer, we have spent millions on overseas expos, like ITB, Berlin, WTM, etc. And with little returns. You see more photo ops and more headlines than real results. Contrast that, because I know she would want to raise it. I served on the tourism agency board along with my colleague during the period 2018 to 2019, and councillor served from 2019, I believe, to 2021 or so about. And of course, we know the COVID period, but I want you all to check the numbers. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. You would see a year-on increase in all the major source markets. And what was quite interesting, we're able to tap into new markets, such as Canada. We moved the Canada market from 2% before 2017 to a whopping 289% increase in arrivals because we were able to find new airlift. That is something the Secretary can't boast of. And that is the legacy that I know I can boast of. Madam Presiding Officer, so if you want to talk about previous before me, you can go ahead. But I can tell you what happened when I was there. Madam Presiding Officer, under the PNM, you had KLM. KLM was actually looking at Tobago and not Trinidad. You had AM Resorts, that 5-star resort that carries Dream that is now twinned with Hyatt. They were looking to take over the Magdalena, and COVID came. And of course, we had the failed Sanders bill, which the Chief Secretary is now begging and pleading, asking them why you're not coming back to talk to us. Perhaps they say sometimes, opportunity missed may never return. Perhaps that might just be the legacy, the Sandals story. Madam Presiding Officer, and of course, even at Turtle Beach, Starfish, remember Starfish? They bought Turtle Beach and they were looking to expand on the other side by bringing to Tobago a royal ton. And then, of course, down at same Killigwin, there was also the idea of a silver sands. All that was happening. The industry was buoyant. And even that project, I know the Chief Secretary and they would gloat about going on up at Argyle. That sod was turned during the period of 2018, 2019. Check your records. Airlift was at its highest. This was action because we had professional people serving on the board. The chairman was at a UWI professor. Another, the deputy chairman at UWI as well. And these were the qualified kind of professionals steering Tobago's tourism development. Compare that to what we have now. I ask you to do the comparison, genuine comparison. Our plan to rescue Tobago's tourism will include, we will strengthen TTAL because that is what TTAL was meant to do. It was to deal with product development, focus on that. Product development and marketing the destination. And we will get TTAL to get back to its real mandate and get the job done. Secure new international flights and charter services because there are a lot of charter arrangements and we will ensure we tap into that. Launch a global Tobago marketing campaign across the major source markets and put some focus in the North American market, especially the South, the South of North America, Miami, Florida, Atlanta, Texas, etc. We will focus marketing in those areas and have the kind of interconnectivity that could bring you to Miami and then get you directly to Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, develop new sites and attractions. And, when I hear them waste so much money, it pains me. Because say what you want about this zip line. That matter will treat with itself in the court. But a zip line as an attraction is a much needed addition to Tobago's ecotourism pursuits. And therefore you would think all the zip line cost is $4 million. You would think as a low-hanging fruit, that is something they would have pursued, not even that they could have delivered. Yet we are spending millions on ambulances that can't even go up a hill. Madam Presiding Officer, we would invest in community tourism and cultural experiences, develop public-private hotel and resort projects, and critically, we will invest in our Tobago people. We will introduce customer service training tied to real incentives, certification, performance-based rewards, and career advancement opportunities. Because tourism is built on people, Madam Presiding Officer, and Tobago's people must be at the center of its success. Madam Presiding Officer, Tobago's tourism is not hopeless, but it's leaderless. And where this administration has failed to act, the PNM will deliver. Madam Presiding Officer, I turn to agriculture. Big promises, bare fields, and the need for a practical revolution. We've heard again that agriculture is a priority. But after nearly 4 years, we must ask ourselves, where is the evidence of this? There's no land tenure reform, no major agro-processing initiative, no modern fisheries development, no proper support structure for small farmers, and the much-touted mega farm has turned out to be a mega myth. The Secretary has announced a bold target to increase agriculture's contribution to GDP from 1% to 6% by 2030. But, Madam Presiding Officer, bold goals mean little without clear milestones, credible strategies, or real buy-in. And when I speak to the farmers, there seems to be a disconnect between the leadership and the people on the ground. What they are saying are their challenges and not what this administration is giving focus to as priority. And one of those things is the whole issue of land tenure. Up to yesterday, a young man, Madam Presiding Officer, was calling me, asking me to beg the Chief Secretary to treat with an application he has at land management for years, to treat with serious agriculture production. And why are we still having people who are interested in agriculture having to beg for land? We should by now have a clear program that treats with the distribution of agricultural lands for farmers who want to do agriculture. And especially for young people, Madam Presiding Officer, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The PNM administration recently created a very progressive initiative, the Youth Agriculture Homestead Program, that we can just curtail it to Tobago and ensure that we encourage young people along a pathway of farming where they are properly supported. Madam Presiding Officer, we have all these fancy things. We are hearing TARI, we're hearing all kinds of things. But the results are not reflected in the investment. Because if we are still at a situation where we can't even report agriculture by itself, and Tobago used to be the breadbasket of Trinidad and Tobago, yet the contribution of agriculture to Tobago's GDP is so small that we have to bulk it with manufacturing. We will move Tobago from that. We'll move beyond the talk and finally give agriculture the kind of attention that it deserves. There's a young man, very ambitious, took the risk, millions spent, to ensure that he can produce poultry to feed all of Tobago and export as well to Trinidad. Yet, the young man is knocking on doors. All he needs, we just launched a loan guarantee program. He should have been the first person you all call in. But yet he's getting sleepless nights because he has mortgaged all his assets. And all he needs is some support. We will provide that support to persons like himself going forward. Madam Presiding Officer, and what about agricultural zoning for smart production? We will designate zones across Tobago for crop-specific cultivation so that areas become known for targeted produce, like root crops, herbs, vegetables, or fruits, like you see in St. Lucia. When you're driving along certain areas in St. Lucia, you can tell that that area is zoned for bananas, and then pumpkins, etc., because all you would see is acres and acres and acres of bananas. And therefore, we can do that in Tobago as well. We are known for the best dasheen in the entire Caribbean. Why aren't we making a clear zone up in my good friend Mason Hall district there and have that area zoned as the zone for blue dasheen? Madam Presiding Officer, and it also treats with economies of scale, specialized extension support, etc. Madam Presiding Officer, we will deal with farm-to-table success because we will partner with TATCO to develop direct farm-to-market pipelines. We'll formalize purchase agreements between farmers and institutional buyers, like the hotels. giving farmers stable and guaranteed market and income. We will incentivize and we will ensure that there are inputs where we will subsidize tools, seeds, irrigation, and cold storage. And we will reduce the payment schedule because that is something that is a big problem at TATCO, where TATCO is owing suppliers and providers of services for months. And these are small providers who have to wait sometime beyond the 30 days. I recall when TATCO did that contract farming, one farmer had to wait for almost 6 months. 6 months, Madam Presiding Officer, that is unacceptable. Madam Presiding Officer, I'm here in crosstalk. Can you protect me from the Secretary of Agriculture, please? Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, I turn to infrastructure. In fact, let me treat with the fisher folk as well. Just recently, I buy my fish at the Scarborough fishing facility. And Madam Presiding Officer, I went there about 6:30 p.m. and I recognized that the gentleman had to take his phone and he turned it into a torchlight. So I asked him, I said, why are you not turning on the light switch? Why are you forcing yourself to have to cut up the fish in this darkness? He said for months, something as simple as changing some bulbs have not been done, even though the division is well aware. And this is the kind of simple fix that even that they can't fix. Some lights, Madam Presiding Officer. So the fisher folk, they have challenges. And we will revitalize the fishery sector because we would provide and upgrade their landing sites and their facilities, and we'll create better market access for them, while encouraging value-added seafood products for export and tourism. Madam Presiding Officer, let me treat with infrastructure very quickly. This is the fourth and final presentation of this administration, and Tobagonians are shouting from every corner, thank God. Indeed, it is a time of reckoning, a final accounting of an administration that has had 4 full bites at the cherry and has now run out of excuses. See, Madam Presiding Officer, it is abundantly clear Tobago is worse off today than it was in December 2021 when this Executive Council took office. Let's stop pretending, Madam Presiding Officer. Let's stop glossing over the truth with PowerPoints, platitudes, and puffery. The construction sector in Tobago has been decimated, but not by external forces, not by any pandemic, not by any international conflict, not by any supply chain disruptions, but by the deliberate actions and inactions of this administration, spiriting away billions. What this administration do with 4 years and billions in, what have they done with the allocation? $10 billion in 4 years, Madam Presiding Officer. It starved Tobago contractors, crippled small builders, and outsourced local empowerment to Trinidad firms, while promising to build a new Tobago. This administration and their friends have been feeding on ham, lamb, and jam, while Tobagonians are given the crumbs. And not just any crumbs, Madam Presiding Officer, the stalest and the moldiest of the crumbs. Madam Presiding Officer, the Chief Secretary stood before the people of Tobago proclaiming a traffic emergency. Imagine that. In order to justify the sole selection methodology to engage their Trinidad contractor friends. The Chief Secretary loves to boast about history, and I realize the current Secretary of Finance has joined the bandwagon as well. The first traffic emergency in our history, a ruse, Madam Presiding Officer, to give out big contracts to their friends who never even built a road with Lego or Play-Doh. Contractors who specialize in building roofs and walls in Signal Hill were given hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts. They claimed they would build roads in time for the Carnival celebrations in 2022, but we're still waiting on the roads in 2025. Madam Presiding Officer, the only thing being built here in Tobago is pure frustration. It overload, Madam Presiding Officer. The record will show the situation in Tobago is so bad that the courts had to intervene on numerous occasions to right the injustice and victimization that has become the standard operating procedure of this administration. One such case, Madam Presiding Officer, just a few months ago in March, is the High Court matter where the court had to intervene, ordering the THA to pay $18.3 million to a company called Nasvik Contractors Limited. And the court, in their judgment, chastised the assembly, and I am stating, and these are the words of the learned judge, describing the THA's actions as careless and reckless governance. And this is taken from Newsday, March 12, 2025. These were not mere words, Madam Presiding Officer, but words of the learned judge. Reckless, yes, but also consistent with a pattern of systematic disrespect for Tobago's indigenous capacity. And if you won't take it from the Minority Council, then hear it from those who keep Tobago's private sector alive. Mr. Curtis Williams, President of the Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, issued a stinging rebuke just this month. Mr. Williams is quoted as saying, "These overdue liabilities hinder cash flow in the private sector and undermine business confidence." Newsday of June 12, 2025. This is no idle warning. It is a red flag for economic collapse. And the former chamber head, Demi John Cruikshank, wasn't mincing words in 2023 either, when he lamented, and I quote, "Can you carry on a business for 2 years and have no money? It's unfair. We have to be begging and pleading with authorities who ought to understand what is happening." These are the words of Demi Cruikshank in a Newsday article of September 14th, 2023. The people of Tobago must now ask, what has this administration truly delivered? Beyond broken promises and budgetary illusions, what have they delivered? After over $10 billion spent by this assembly and nothing to show for it, except a beautiful stage in the sea, the Great Wall of Signal Hill, and Nutsey River in Crown Point, and the greatest disrespect and disregard of all, the 10-on and 10-off temporary make-work program. Madam Presiding Officer, this administration rode into office boasting of their great plans to turn Scarborough into a city, bright lights, skyscrapers, and underground utility corridors. All we have seen so far is the McKenna man moving the I Love Tobago sign for a whopping $200,000 and the opening of a closed store. By the way, Madam Presiding Officer, whatever happened to the Scarborough Development Plan? The Secretary of Finance, in her historic presentation, never mentioned that flagship project once. Not once, Madam Presiding Officer. Nothing about utility corridor, nothing about the skyscraper, nothing about the city, not one squawk. Apparently, all the pies in the sky have fallen out. Madam Presiding Officer, the countless complaints of Tobagonians coming into my office related to the terrible state of their roads is now overwhelming. In the history of the THA, our roads have not been so horrible. Everywhere you turn is a pothole or a sinkhole, or even a crater. Perhaps if you drive too fast, you may just end up somewhere else, may disappear. Tire shops in Tobago are making a killing, Madam Presiding Officer. No wonder the Secretary is saying that there's a growth in GDP. Perhaps it's by the tire shops. Madam Presiding Officer, the 2025-2026 draft estimates totaling $3.71 billion read like a final act of desperation. Another round of announcements, allocations, and abstractions. But where is the accountability for the billions that came before? Where is the accountability for the $10 billion that you have already spent? This budget, like the ones before it, is an exercise in optics over outcomes, one set of Barbies and Kens parading up and down in fancy suits, doing nothing with plenty. Let it be known, Madam Presiding Officer, that the real deadline for Tobago is not June 30th. It is prescribed months after December 6, 2025, when the people will have the final say on the direction of their island. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to touch on digital technology. We have heard a lot of noise about digital transformation, but let's be honest. For all their talk, Tobago's tech infrastructure remains stuck in the Stone Age. And Madam Presiding Officer, I just want to make case in point. There's an app called Smart, Show Me a Road Tobago. Right, Madam Presiding Officer? Big launch, 1,000 spends. I now move to press on this app, submit complaint now. Voila. What you get is error. Class deal props not found. And this is the administration that is telling us about their phenomenal plans for digital transformation, but a simple app which was designed for ordinary Tobagonians, for the multiple potholes as you face to take a picture and show them the road. We can't even do that. Can't even create manage an app. But you are talking about a whole heap of fancy plans and AI and big data. But you can't even deal with a basic app to function properly. In fact, Madam Presiding Officer, they talk about making the THA data-driven, but there's no digital aspect within the THA at this time, except perhaps in the Division of Health and at TRH and their medical records. Madam Presiding Officer, the Secretary proposes spending $37.4 million on digital transformation, but gave no breakdown. She gave no breakdown of no allocation for broadband access, no mention of e-government portals, no reference to cybersecurity or cloud infrastructure, no plan for staff training or public adoption. Even worse, no smart targets. I think that is a word made famous by our member for Bell Garden. No digital uptake goals, no baseline, no KPIs, just vague, again, Madam Presiding Officer, just vague aspirations. PNM's vision, Madam Presiding Officer, is for, here what we will do. We'll deliver digital infrastructure where the people need it. We'll partner with the Ministry of Digital Transformation and AI to expand community digital hubs across Tobago in community centers and libraries, offering free Wi-Fi access to devices, basic IT support. This will bridge the access divide and empower citizens, especially the youth and the elderly. Wi-Fi access and digital nomad zones will expand public Wi-Fi hotspots across the island, develop zones for digital nomads to work remotely in Tobago, integrating tourism with digital infrastructure. Digitization of government services, Madam Presiding Officer, also setting up cybersecurity and data governance. We will establish a cybersecurity unit and invest in cloud storage and privacy protocols to protect citizen data before we collect it. Digital literacy, workforce upskilling. We will launch coding boot camps, certification programs for public servants, and the goal is to train and certify 1,500 digital-ready staff by 2028. Accountability through a digital steering committee. We will form a digital transformation steering committee to track service delivery, timelines, user satisfaction, cybersecurity breaches, and of course, we'll ensure that the necessary budget is allocated to support these initiatives. Madam Presiding Officer, and as I wrap up, I want to treat with human capital. Madam Presiding Officer, when the Secretary of Finance lists human capital development, and she didn't put youth empowerment and sport as a priority in that sector, but I will add them. There was no evidence of, again, any real measurement system to track return on investment. Because what we have seen is not development, but neglect, inconsistency, and inaction. Despite big headlines, the budget provides no comprehensive plan to train our people, support our youth, or invest in sporting excellence. These are not side issues. They are pillars of national prosperity and community pride. Let me outline the shortcomings of the current administration's approach and then present the PNM's practical people-centered plan. The Secretary claims to prioritize workforce development, yet gratuities for contract workers remain unpaid for months. I know in the Division of Education there are people waiting years. Madam Presiding Officer, let me repeat that. There are contract workers in divisions waiting years for their payment of contract gratuities. Madam Presiding Officer, I have been inundated by calls from the Department of Sport where it has gotten so bad that there's even claims of a racket because you now have to try to get who is number 11 trying to get ahead of the line because it has gotten so bad. People, we are not prioritizing the payment of gratuities, and that is an injustice to the hard-working public servants. Madam Presiding Officer, there's no framework to identify, attract, and retain skilled professionals returning to Tobago. No plan was announced for regularizing the 10-on, 10-off temporary workers. A bold ambition was stated that they would increase Tobagonians going to tertiary qualified Tobagonians from 22% to 30% by 2030. But Madam Presiding Officer, establish a gratuity clearinghouse to ensure all gratuities are paid. We will, sorry, Madam Presiding Officer. So these are the challenges, and under the PNM, we will create a gratuity clearinghouse centralized to ensure monitor and ensure all gratuities are paid within 90 days of contract completion. We'll formalize a temporary to permanent transition pathway for persons offering upskilling, appraisal, and structured promotion for THA temporary workers, launch a returning scholars job guarantee program that places Tobago-born graduates directly into critical sectors such as education, health, ICT, engineering. We'll introduce a learn while you earn upskilling program for persons with only primary or secondary education, allowing them to train while receiving a stipend. Presiding Officer, this is not just slogans, this is substance. The administration under the PNM, Madam Presiding Officer, when it comes to youth, will establish the Tobago Youth Apprenticeship and Agricultural Youth Homestead Program, modeled after the successful initiative in Trinidad, and we'll use locations such as Friendship and Goldsboro as the pilot. We'll introduce the Tobago Creative and Sports Fund to support young creatives, athletes, and entrepreneurs with grants, scholarships, and mentorship. We'll roll out the digital hubs in every district to teach coding, podcasting, digital design, and media production, designed specifically for youth engagement and employment. And when it comes to sport, Madam Presiding Officer, our athletes have been abandoned. Our facilities, and case in point, I had to call my colleague because, Madam Presiding Officer, it's unacceptable that in this day and age where the division actually invested in equipment to mark fields, you are going to utilize after the field is approved. When you go there, the field is unmarked. We should have no field in Tobago. We should not have to go through that where it's not match ready. All our fields should be match ready, and there's no excuse. Madam Presiding Officer, we will ensure that there's proper maintenance and management of all sporting facilities. Madam Presiding Officer, we will launch the Elite Athlete Development Program, offering continuous training, dietary support, and travel grants. We will rehabilitate and upgrade existing sporting facilities, and we will look at giving priority to the construction of a cricket stadium and a motorsport circuit. Madam Presiding Officer, human development isn't, and will also provide equipment grants, medical support, and local coaching certification, because you have to have the coaches if you want to take from at the grassroots level if you want to develop sport. Madam Presiding Officer, human development isn't a footnote. It's the main chapter in any successful society. This administration has had 4 years, 4 budgets, and yet the youth are underserved, workers unpaid, scholars unrecognized, and athletes unsupported. The PNM is offering more than promises. We are offering real programs, policies, and platforms. As I close, I wish to first extend my heartfelt gratitude to the hundreds of Tobagonians who contributed meaningfully to the preparation of this budget response. Whether you participated in our online surveys, attended our in-person consultations, offered written submissions, or simply lent your voice to the conversation, your engagement has been invaluable. To my team, the dedicated staff who worked tirelessly to compile this presentation, notwithstanding the challenges, I didn't even have ink. That is how things bad. I didn't even have ink to print my speech today. So I'm using the digital technology that the PNM will bring to this next THA administration. Madam Presiding Officer, I express to these volunteers who supported us with data and analysis my expressed and sincerest thanks and gratitude. This response is as much yours as it is mine. Madam Presiding Officer, over the past 4 years, Tobago has received over $10 billion, and yet we find ourselves not on the path to prosperity, but anchored in stagnation. The metaphor of the anchor is apt. While it serves to steady a vessel, it never lifts. The vessel is never lifted. It can also prevent it from moving forward. If never lifts, sorry, Madam Presiding Officer, while the metaphor of the anchor is apt, while it serves to steady a vessel, if never lifted, it can also prevent it from moving forward. Tobago is weighed down, not by a lack of potential, but by a failure of leadership and management. The time has come for us as a people to make a decisive choice, to cut loose the anchor of mismanagement and misdirection and set sail towards real growth, equity, and hope. I must also take a moment to speak as a proud member of the People's National Movement. Yes, the PNM is going through a period of necessary transition, both in Trinidad and here in Tobago. We are not out of government because the electorate failed us, but because we failed to adequately meet the demands of the people in some instances. And we accept that, and we sincerely apologize for any instance where we may not have lived up to the expectations of our Tobago people. We have heard you, Tobagonians. We are having the difficult conversations. We are doing the introspection. We are choosing to be better. It is in that spirit that the PNM presents a comprehensive, people-centered alternative, not rooted in personality or power, but in purpose and principle. We are ensuring that the people we offer for leadership in Tobago are not self-centered, but self-oriented. This is our commitment to you, the people of Tobago. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the people of Darrell Spring Wim, our loyal and ardent supporters, for allowing me the distinct honor of serving not only as their assemblyman, but also as minority leader. It is a responsibility I carry with humility and dedication. Now, I expect that in the response of this presentation, there will be attempts to revisit past PNM administrations, and that is fine. But let us be clear. The PNM is in opposition today because the people held us accountable, and we accepted that judgment. That is precisely what this current administration must also prepare to face. And I say to my colleagues on the other side, if you are aware of wrongdoing under previous administration, then do as I have done. Submit the evidence to the relevant authorities. Let the institutions of justice do their work. Because after 4 years, if you cannot come to this house, as I have done, with facts, documents, and call for investigations, then all you are offering is political hot air. And Tobago deserves better. As we approach the next election, I urge every Tobagonian to remember this. This is not just about parties, it is about progress. It is about whether we remain anchored or finally begin to move forward. I say, let us cut loose the anchor stagnating Tobago. Let us choose accountability. Let us choose vision. Let us choose Tobago first. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to thank you and thank the people of Tobago And may God continue to bless our island and our country, Trinidad and Tobago.
Member for Palatine and Smith Bayside, you may now join this debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer and esteemed members of this House. Today, Madam Presiding Officer, I rise with great pride and full support for the fiscal measures as outlined in the budget presentation laid in this House for the first time by a Tobago woman for fiscal year 2025-2026. Madam Presiding Officer, that budget presentation, as presented by Councillor and Secretary for Finance, Trade and Economy, was not merely an account of figures and allocation. It was actually a very bold articulation of vision, of discipline, and responsiveness to the needs of our people. This, Madam Presiding Officer, is a people-centered budget. It is a Tobago-centered budget. It is a budget that reflects the heartbeat of our island and the rhythm of our collective aspirations. From the very onset, Madam Presiding Officer, this administration committed itself to building stronger, more resilient Tobago, one that is economically, socially, and institutionally strengthened. Today, Secretary Roberts has demonstrated that our commitment has not wavered one bit. She presented a financial plan that balances pragmatism with ambition, one that confronts the realities of our current economic climate, which boldly invests in Tobago's transformation, from youth development to tourism revitalization, from housing expansion to food security. This budget reflects, reveals that we care about every single household, every single community, every single child. But Madam Presiding Officer, as we heard at the opening of the debate today, and as we heard from the member for Darrell Spring Wim, we could practically predict the speech. I mean, it's perhaps written from PNM GPT. And so it has been regurgitated for the last 4 years. And if we listen to the member opposite, one will swear that the PNM now come. One would swear that the party was just founded this morning. One would swear that somehow they are now for the first time projecting on Tobago things that should be done to alleviate the pain, the problems, the challenges we face as an island. But you see, PNM is synonymous with hypocrisy. And if hypocrisy has a color, it will be red. Because one will not imagine that they had 21 unbroken years, including the fact that during that time, they had one term, full term, where they controlled every single seat in this house. And during that time, for only once, there was a different government in Port of Spain. And yet, the member comes today positing and posturing as though magically they did not exist, trying to erase history, rewrite it, and pretend as though we should accomplish every single thing they failed to accomplish in 21 years in 3.5 years. Let's do the math. It's 21 versus 3.5 years. And if we compare the 21 to 3.5 years, this administration has done significantly better than their 21 years. And I will show you that in a while. But I want to correct some misinformation. I am not sure who advised the member opposite on how we went about calculating GDP, or even how GDP is calculated. Because it's evident that the good gentleman does not know. And I will assume that someone with postgraduate studies in international relations would have done economics. I did international relations, and economics is actually one of the areas you have to cover under international relations, both micro and macro and international political economy. You must cover it. And so the golden member, I don't want to believe, deliberately misled the House and the people of Tobago, but he should be aware of how GDP is calculated. Madam Presiding Officer, the minority leader attempted to question the validity of the GDP data presented in the budget statement. It's overly surprising that he would take such a position when this is the same methodology which has been used since 2011 when his party was in power. In other words, we have not changed the arithmetic. We have not changed the methodology. They use the same methodology to calculate GDP. So how come it was right then, from 2011 to December 2021, and all of a sudden, the same arithmetic is wrong now for calculating GDP? Remember I told you P&M equals hypocrisy. The same methodology. The estimates of gross domestic product for Tobago are generated using a hybrid strategy developed by two, not one, two former senior employees of the Central Statistical Office with extensive experience in calculating the national GDP, who worked collaboratively with the staff of the Economic Management and Research Unit at the Division of Finance. The minority leader, he didn't have any issue in the previous years. In fact, they campaigned on those GDP growths that they had in the previous years. In fact, sometimes he comes here and attempts to compare our growth to their growth. But today we use the same method to calculate, and it's wrong today, but it was right yesterday. This strategy accounts for the unique data infrastructure and challenges facing Tobago by combining the three approaches to calculate GDP. Expenditure method, where administrator data is available. Income method for non-market output sectors. And output production method, where a representative sample can be effectively surveyed via the survey of business establishments. So it's a combination of those three. And that is reasonable, Madam Presiding Officer. The minority leader gave the impression that it is only data from the survey of business establishment that was used to calculate GDP. And that is not true. That is incorrect. But again, if you cannot understand it, you cannot cross it, Madam Presiding Officer. And one should not be surprised, because what we have been getting from a loud and mostly inarticulate minority across the island is a sense that perhaps after 44 years of the THA being here in Tobago, that many people miss a lot of days in school. And that people who are functionally illiterate somehow are given a soapbox to mouth off without understanding facts and understanding how things work. You are supposed to be the alternative government. and you don't even know how the GDP is calculated. First major error, first untruth peddled. And then the member opposite proceeded to say, well, here know how much the debt is. And it's interesting because he made a lot of talk about contractors not being paid. What he has not said to the people of Tobago are the contractors that they did not pay, that they now want us to find a way to pay off all in a jiffy. It's not we that contract them, you know. They contracted them. They did not pay them and want them to be paid off in total immediately. So let me repeat what the figures are. Because in January 2022, in fact, on the 7th of January 2022, at a special sitting in this house, I stood here and I gave quite clearly what the liabilities at that time was for the people of Tobago. And that liability, Madam Presiding Officer, let me read it again. And hopefully the Minority Council could write them down. And we could add it up. As at January 7, 2022, total liabilities, and this is development liabilities. This does not include liabilities for gratuities or liabilities on the recurrent side. This is development liabilities. Stood at $737,321.55. That's the first big number. The second, Madam Presiding Officer, is that the THA have a bond financing arrangement for which in a few years from now, we have to find in bulk to pay off in one go, not piece, in one go, $215,820,605.64. And that debt is also a development expenditure debt, generated debt. And so when we add those two figures together, Madam Presiding Officer, we get a total inherited development debt of $953,887,927. In fact, I said in January of 2022 that our debt fell just below $1 billion. The media took it and said our debt was $1 billion. But the truth is, if we had to add our recurrent debts to it, the overtime, the gratuity, the increments, things that where we owe light bill. And I heard talk in the space about the light bill and health. You know how much was inherited light bill at Shaw Park Complex? $10 million. $10 million. When I came into office, I had to via monies, and the Secretary of Finance was then the management accountant, and she could bear me witness. When I came into office, at the close of the first financial year, I had to via money like crazy from Farmland Development Program to pay off the phone bill in OCS. Unpaid. Unpaid. But again, I'm showing you, Madam Presiding Officer, and the people of Tobago, how PNM equals hypocrisy. The member came and he attempted to present a manifesto of sorts. And I wish perhaps he had leaned on the strength of the member closest to him on the left, because he might have been able to produce something more substantial insofar as a dream or an ambition for Tobago. At least we would have get that. He spoke about moving contracted teachers to the establishment if they get back in power. So what happened for 21 years? I was a contracted teacher for 7 years. I did assessment from the Teaching Service Commission, passed with flying colors. After 2 years, your assessment is null and void. Guess what? No establishment done, work done. None. But you know what? Since I became chief secretary, there are members who worked with me in Speyside High who are now on the establishment since I became chief sec. So clearly there has been movement. And let me give you a big one. When Mrs. Prasad Bissessa was prime minister the first time, Harmon School of SDA became government assisted. Madam Presiding Officer, it pains me to say that we came into office in 2021 and not a single work done to move them on the establishment. Yet we had a PNM Prime Minister, a PNM Chief Secretary, and they could not get cabinet. They could not get cabinet to move them on the establishment. You know what has happened to people at Harmon? Many of them have gone past 45, and now it's a question of asking the cabinet to waive that prohibition in our regulations, to allow for them to enter the service, because it has been unfair to them. The vice principal at Harmon's, the principal, you know they've been paid as contracted officers. We had to make up names for contracts and contract terms for them to this day. And yet the member comes here and behaves as though they were never in office. They didn't care about contracted teachers then. Then he spoke about scholarship support. We have spent more money in 3.5 years than any previous PNM government in 4 years on scholarships. And I say that out of your favor, that is for beating 21. At present, our figure is $16,425,394.27. To the cent. And you know what is interesting? The allocation that we get every year for scholarship support, tertiary support, is $500,000. So we have placed support for capital development. And you know why this figure has to be so high? Because the same PNM government, and perhaps it's because the former Prime Minister hated patrimony, why he closed the gate. And so many of our students are no longer getting access to free tertiary education across the region. We have been filling the gap. University of Tobago, Madam Presiding Officer, there was once a plan for University of Tobago in Boku. Now horse does graze and run there. The former chief secretary, longest serving chief secretary on this island, said Tobago don't have enough people for university. When People's Partnership wanted to compulsory acquire the lands in Louisdor for university up there, they said we don't have enough people. All of a sudden they know about university. But yet to ignore the fact that we have university operations up at Kendall Farm School through TARI, rebranded as Tobago Agriculture Research Institute, because our mandate was to have university or tertiary education operate as a satellite type of operation all across the island. You could get your degree, you could do postgraduate work up at Kendall Farm School, accredited by the University of Trinidad and Tobago. We have introduced that, not PNM. School repairs. Madam Presiding Officer, it's laughable. Last year, the government he supported in Trinidad spent $20 million for the whole of Trinidad on school repair. For hundreds of schools. You know how much we spent? $20 million as well. And we hadn't even reached 100 proper. In total, over 3.5 years, we have spent $100 million on school repairs, more than any other administration has done. That is 4 versus 21. Gratuity payments, well, it's a big one. At education alone, Madam Presiding Officer, and I want contracted teachers to hear. Because up to this day, education still a gratuity for me. And it's because I don't want to be selfish. He who must lead must first serve. And I want people to go and get the money. Meanwhile, in education for my money, let people go and get their money. I know like the former Prime Minister who said my money shouldn't sleep out. Let mine sleep out. Once Tobagonians get in theirs, mine could sleep out. Gratuity payments over these 3.5 years, 4 verses 21. We have spent to date at education $169,506,824.51. Almost 170 million spent on gratuity payments, more than any other administration. And what is interesting, Madam Presiding Officer, most of this debt is inherited. Yes. This is not accrued over 4 years. This is accrued over 21 years of P&M collecting allocations to gratuities and not paying the teachers the gratuities. We have been paying it off. Right now, Madam Presiding Officer, when it comes to increments, same teachers, those on the establishment, again, we have paid more than any other administration in 4 years. We have paid to date $88,235,775.75 on increments. To date, increments daily left behind. And right now, we just have outstanding increments of $4,840,858.19. Madam Presiding Officer, they're trying hard to compare 21 to 4, and at every model, every matrix they use, it shows that our 4 is superior to their whole 21. Those are the facts. I am surprised the member will come here and talk about zipline to save tourism. I'm glad he's ziplining himself out of here. Because if he's honest, he will tell the people of Tobago that after spending $4 million for a zipline, we still don't have all the parts of the zipline on island. We have so much a rope, we could tie out every boat, tie out every cow, tie out every goat, tie out every sheep, and still have more rope left. And what he will not say is that parts of the zipline were left in storage up in Miami, storage never paid for, storage seized, and so to do a zipline, you have to start from scratch. And that's why I'm insistent that the people who were paid the $4 million for this zipline pay we back with money. And the only people on island supporting the people who spirited away, to use their word, our $4 million for a zipline we never got is the P&M. Yes. Unpatriotic. And then you talk about agricultural zoning. Do you know what agricultural zoning? When we were cutting down cocoa fields left, right, and center to build all kind of things, they were considering agricultural zoning. When we were putting houses in areas that had excellent irrigation and excellent for farming and crop production, were they considering agricultural zoning? For 21 years. In 4 years, under 4 years, it was 3.5. But in under 4 years, you know what we have done? Tractor Pool have the biggest intake of equipment, new equipment. The long outstanding backlog at Tractor Pool has been reduced because of this administration. We have people waiting for 10, 11 years to get a tractor to come by them. We fix that. We fix that. They left the mess. We fix it. And then you talk about the Scarborough Development Plan. Madam Presiding Officer, when the Honorable Member for Scarborough, Color Hall, and the team at Infrastructure did all the modeling, they did the testing, they did the design work, we did consultations publicly, we did consultations virtually, we did consultations in person, we met with stakeholders, and they came up with the brief. I took my time. I took resources. And even when I was at the Division of Finance then, Division of Finance photocopier run out of ink, I came by a stationery supply store neighboring here and spent my own money to pay for the rest of copies. And I sent copies of the report and the design to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Finance, to the Minister of Planning, to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure, to the Minister of Tourism, to the Minister of Digital Transformation, every one of them, public utilities, every one of them. I know what the then Prime Minister did. He came up to Mason Hall and said, Farley sent him 10 pounds of paper. He ain't reading that, and the only development he's supporting in Tobago is Marriott. But you know why, Madam Presiding Officer? Because the people in Marriott are part of his 1% friends. So if they come from your 1% friends,
Member, you have 5 minutes.
If it ain't come from your 1% friends, PNM can't support it. We sent it to them. We made the request. Tender notices went out, Madam Presiding Officer. And all that was required was for the central government to give a commitment insofar as a sovereign guarantee. Couldn't even get a yes or a no. Couldn't get a yes or a no. But today, all of a sudden, you know that there is a Scarborough development plan. And talk about digital transformation. Digital transformation, Madam Presiding Officer. We had a whole ministry for digital transformation. And it was an epic failure. Epic failure. A set of promises from a Tobagonian at that. And I might say so-called Tobagonian. It ain't realizing Tobago up to now. As a matter of fact, what they have done is attempted to stall every digital work we have done. If Miss, the Minority Council should be aware of it, we did all the work, completed all the work, reduced the number of bank accounts down to 4, prepared for complete digital financial transformation. Guess what? Ministry of Finance sit down and say, nah, all the whole, we ain't going yet. We then had at Health, where we were preparing to move all our social services digital, meaning you don't have to come into the office to get a grant or to even apply. You will come to your phone. You could go and shop with your phone. Digital. We were working with the UNCDF and the TTIFC. You know what happened? The ministry in Trinidad tell them, don't work in Tobago whole. Tobago can't be more advanced than Trinidad. So that got stopped because of them. And they're talking about digital transformation. This government has moved our tendering process to complete digital platform, the only part of the country that is ensuring that all our procurement, our tendering is digital. And then, of course, he spoke about sports. And while God didn't bless me with athletic abilities, I was the vice president of Saidi's Football Club. And I was the president of Saidi's Football Club for well over 10 years. One of the top clubs on the island. You could ask the member for Lambo how much league stage to get. He used to coach a team two teams between Lambo and Signal Hill. And Madam Presiding Officer, you know how much games I got to and game I had to put off? You know how much times I took my parents paying from the house to mark line on the field in Speyside? You know how much nets I bought myself? So this is a long-standing issue. And it's not even because of who sits in the seat. I met with the administrator and the directors at sports a week or two ago. And when you listen to where their headspace is at, you will understand why this happens on our field. Issues of productivity. People coming to work, leaving early, and not delivering on what should be delivered. That's not new. And when motorsport is concerned, I'm happy to say to the member that we have already identified and we have already shown the Motorsport Association the lands for the circuit down at Friendship. This administration also has given the Motorsport Association an unfettered access without charge to parade ground any day of the week once it is not required by another agency or NGO to use for motorsport. And it is this administration that has facilitated for the last 2 to 3 years the closure of the Belmont Road for motorsport in Tobago. We have done more for motorsport. In fact, PNM didn't even consider it a sport. Interesting. And so, Madam Presiding Officer, with the time left, there are a few other things I wish to share. One, we have had no end of obstruction from the central government. And I hear the member about 32 million. And if anybody had asked me, and I'll say to you, whether I am satisfied, whether I feel it is enough, my answer will be no. And I've already said, from the Prime Minister coming right down, that
Member, your time has expired.
Madam Presiding Officer. My mic was on.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I beg to move that the speaking time of the member for Palataville and Semi Speyside be extended by a further 10 minutes.
Honorable members, the question is that an additional speaking time of 10 minutes be given to the member. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against say no. The ayes have it. Please continue. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, members. And I assume the member for Roxborough, Argyle, was also trying to afford me some extra time too. So let me thank you for the very noble efforts, member. Thank you very much, my brother. Madam Presiding Officer, I was at the point of talking about the 32 million, and I was saying, if you ask anybody on this side whether we think the 32 million plus the 100 million from CAF is sufficient, we will tell you no. Because Tobago's development needs are so great that we have to be funded at a rate above every district in Trinidad in order for us to catch up. We want miracles in tourism. Our nearest competitor, Barbados, and we just saw the news where our tourism agents are working with Barbados with the flight from Germany with Condor. Barbados right next door, spending a minimum of 40 million US every year on just marketing alone. We're not even spending 10 million US on marketing. In fact, we're not even getting that. We're not even getting 10 million US to run the whole of Tital. Let me be fair. How Barbados could put their ads on shirts in Wimbledon, on jerseys in Premier League. To that visit to Rwanda you see when you're watching Premier League, that alone, Madam Presiding Officer, costs millions of pounds per year. Millions. Not even TT, pounds. And that is what we must compete with a budget that would give us between 30 and 40 million TT dollars to run the whole operations, including paying staff and doing marketing. You're talking about going world travel market. I wish Tobagonians could come. And Secretary for Tourism, I am putting out an invitation this year for the minority to send somebody with us to World Travel Organization. I want them to come and see for themselves. Come and see for themselves. Because, Madam Presiding Officer, if they come and see who we stand up against, how countries with even smaller economies than ours have boots that bigger than ours, and I say, but how them pay for that? And when we go down, we have to beg Trinidad to come on board. Some years Trinidad tell us, we will join you. And when we reach airport, we hear Trinidad not coming again. That is what we face. And then the member is talking about contractors, and I'll say that finally before I'm touching on some important points on OCS. Talk about contractors and decimating the contract sector. We have not done that, you know. Dishonesty has done that. Because I'm insistent that we will only pay only what we owe. And I've seen the member publicly champion a particular contractor who for this day had the equipment seized by the court for illegal quarrying, carry the same corrupt way some Tobago to Trinidad and get catch. That is who the member must associate himself with. But Madam Presiding Officer, across at OCS, we have been advancing digitization for the entire THA. Our operations at the executive level is almost completely digital. A firm was engaged that is digitizing the records of the THA as we speak, and within 3 months, we will get to the point where all meetings, all the engagements can actually happen electronically, and that simple things like exec council notes can be submitted, approved, confirmed electronically. We are on the verge of launching the development pathway. It was approved. We came into office on the basis of building out the greatest little island on the planet. We sat with those 12 principles of the greatest little island on the planet. We consulted with internal clients of the THA and built out the development pathway. The website will be launched towards the end of this month so that we can now bring into the conversation the rest of Tobago. And let me show you 4 verses 21. We did not get our first development plan from the PNM until they were in the 2nd term in office. Tobago is going to get the development pathway from us in our 1st term in office that will cover Tobago for 20 years. And not only that, the CDP 2.0 expired since about 2016. They were in office for about 5 or 6 years after it expired. Not a single plan in 1 term, we're providing it. With regards to land management, which the member raised, we inherited over 400 applications at land management, just there. State Land Committee just did not review. We have been reviewing them, we have been doing interviews, and we have been placing people. The challenge remains access to surveyors. In fact, we did put out an ad for surveyors to apply for work within land management, and we did not get any hits. The surveyors who are there are junior surveyors, and they are not licensed. They are not licensed to even go out on the field without a senior. That's the situation of what we have. And so we have 1 senior surveyor from the island that we have contracted, who is there working with the junior surveyors trying to catch up with the backlog. But why do we have 400 unaddressed ones? And yet it got to say that the person applied long time and waiting. So not even during our tenure, the person applied. Before we came into office, the person applied. We are also looking at our HR issues. And we are hoping the government can fix issues with the CPO. Because it cannot be right that we have positions approved by cabinet since 2004, still waiting to be classified. One of which is a deputy clerk of the House, classified since 2004. Several from across in the Division of Food Security, classified since 2004, up to this point. Sorry, not classified, approved by cabinet since 2004, and up to now cannot be classified. The member opposite and his friends have made very heavy weather about some ambulances on the island. And I want to address that before I close. Because many people don't understand how the procurement system works. As a matter of fact, I can tell you and tell Tobagonians that since this thing happened, way back when, and I was asked in this house whether I am doing an investigation, it's not for me to investigate. The instruction went to the TRHA since that time to send all of the procurement documents to the Office of the Procurement Regulator. Let the Office of the Procurement Regulator make a determination as to whether the procurement process was good or bad. That is where it needs to go. They are the ones that must do the investigation. But you see, what people don't understand about procurement is that a secretary, a member of the executive, we don't have any say in the procurement, you know. We have no say whatsoever. Only a named procurement officer and the accounting officer for the division have a say. And if, as an executive, we say, go buy 5 bales of toilet paper, they could just go out and buy the cheapest. And if they buy the cheapest, people have to reel out 5 or 10 times more for it to be efficient. And they end up running out faster. We can't go and tell the procurement people, well, we don't want this cheap. brand that is not efficient, buy this brand, it's better. We can't even tell them what type to buy. Them just do what they do. We could send them the scope, they tender, and they go with it. And then we on the back end must blindly hope that what they in fact tendered for and what they have in fact procured meets the needs that we have for the people of the island. And hope to God that they align. That is just the reality. And me ain't getting involved in no procurement. You could ask, I dare you to ask any procurement officer if this chief secretary ever come to them for any favor. Not one. Not one. Anybody set line. Not one. I don't want to know the number. Me, I want to sit down and meet with them. I don't even want to lie with them. And if I know your procurement officer and I see you outside liming there, I'm liming over so. Because nobody going to call my name with procurement. But that's the reality of the procurement regime that we have. But you see those same ambulances, as efficient as the minority leader says they are, there will come a day when those same ambulances will have to tote him up to Scarborough Hospital because he would lose and lose again bigly as he lost on April the 28th.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired.
And I thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, for allowing me to end on such a high note of hope and promise to the people of Tobago. Thank you and God's blessings.
Assemblyman Duke, you may now join this debate.
Okay. Special good afternoon to my colleagues. I want to borrow the lineup of dignitaries here. So let me say, Madam Presiding Officer, Chief Secretary, Deputy Chief Secretary, secretaries, assistant secretaries, the minority leader, councillors. We have the chief administrator, I'll see him here, member for Tobago East, down there in the crowd, and the visitors and senior public officers, etc. It gives me great pleasure today to stand in this important house, the only house in Tobago where we can advocate on behalf of Tobagonians legally and push towards a greater island. I listened to my colleague and her presentation of the budget entitled Accelerating Growth, Anchoring Fiscal Stability. Accelerating growth, anchoring fiscal stability. I paused and I asked myself, why this tongue twister? Why this oxymoron? We are talking growth and we are talking stability. Accelerating growth and anchoring stability. Why are we confusing the minds of Tobagonians? But then I listened to my colleague, member for 43rd Plenary, Speyside, and I had to smile as I heard him present. Because, Madam Presiding Officer, my mind went back to his early days on this side and how he has matured in his presentation. And I tell people sometimes, when I look at him, I recognize he's paying me a lot of compliment by the way he dresses, the way he articulates, the vigorousness in his movements, even his back chats, he's paying me compliment. But I read, yes. But I read somewhere that it is said imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And that mediocrity, let me read again properly, for the record's sake, for the Hansard's sake. It is said, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. That mediocrity can pay to greatness. And I say, I bow to you, sir, because you acknowledge my greatness. We started on this side. And I think I'm I've been the most senior politician here. I am the longest staying member on this side. There is something about this side that makes you see what you need to see. When you get on that side, you become blindsided. I can tell you. I spent 9 months on that side, and I was blindsided. When I came back on this side, I can see clearly now as Jimmy Cliff. The clouds are gone. While my colleague is celebrating over there, and my colleague, councillor, is given a $3.7 billion budget with threats to Trinidad, pay it or else, I understand that the people outside are not concerned about numbers. They are concerned about their living conditions, the quality of life they were promised, and the quality of life they have achieved. It is with great expectations the people of Tobago overwhelmingly support the Progressive Democratic Patriots on December 6th, 2021. And it is with great expectation I move the motion as Assemblyman for my colleague Farley Chavez Augustine to become Chief Secretary. It is with great expectations that I surround myself with a team of new people into the Assembly, creating for the first time in Tobago a dream that could have hardly been dreamt before, but that became reality, perhaps too sudden. We have ordinary people here occupying the corridors of power for the first time, and they did it legally, the right way. But somehow, what we campaigned on and what we govern on, there is a mixed match. There is a mixed match. We campaigned on, let we fix this, and I could still hear the this in my ears, the disrespect, the distance, disappointment, dissatisfaction. Come, let we fix this. Bread and butter issues. Man was hungry and we wanted to let the dollars trickle down to the Tobago contractors, to the Tobago mothers. Tobago fathers gave the students great opportunity. We had promised a Tobago that created flashing lights, bells and whistles like Walt Disney, something that people was excited about when we came into office. 3 years later, maybe a half, so to speak, my colleagues are still grappling with fixing this. They are still grappling with getting it right. Allow me to say a budget, and I want to go back to schooling again. A budget is based on one simple thing. A budget is based on a plan to achieve something. Yeah? A solid plan. And that plan that any politician seeks to achieve is the plan that was given to the people prior to being elected into office, because the people voluntarily voted for that plan, a plan to fix this bread and butter issues. And so when I saw and I read the budget statement, I recognized that we are no longer pursuing that which we spoke of, because the democratic will of the people is very important
Anybody who tries to usurp the democratic will is running afoul of the law. Because the very law places the democratic will of the people as the only thing that gives efficacy, that gives power to a government. The people have spoken. They had spoken. What they wanted was jobs, real sustainable jobs. Today in Tobago, we have, on an average, and this is very conservative, extremely conservative, every year, 50 Tobagonians leaving tertiary education with degrees. 50, at least every single year. 50 Tobagonians leave university, college, wherever, with degrees in their hands. And when they come back here, they have not one single thing to do. We have not opened up Tobago. So, what had Tobago voted for? They have voted for Tobago that will create new jobs. Not the 4,000 jobs that the councillor spoke of. I believe that she's unaware of what we had promised. And so she spoke of some 4,000 jobs, mostly of which is CPEP, URP, 10 on, 10 off, reforestation kind of work. That's not what we wanted. That's not what we wanted. Those jobs are the jobs people do to avoid idling. But persons who are suited up and are degreed up and are ready to lift the island, they want to work along the lines they have been educated. To date, we have not prepared a Tobago for these people. So how does the budget speak to this? After 3.5 years, they have come up with some big plan, 26 to 2030, and they talk about 4 major growth areas. But what had they done in the last 3.5 years to tourism? What had they done could not have been good, because we have recognized that at 1 year we had 100 boats docking in our shores, cruise ships. And the next year, 40, a decline. At one time, we were supposed to ensure that all our tourist locations have proper restroom facilities. Today, we see Fort James is suffering from coastal erosion. Half of Fort James is now in the sea, and there is a caution tape around it marked "Don't pass here." And they still use a chemical toilet, which is hardly cleaned. So where are we going with tourism? How have we fixed tourism? Some of the treks to the Aga waterfall, the Palatavia waterfall, the Highlands waterfall, all of our waterfalls are dangerous. Where is the proper pathway where the average child can walk and enjoy the different levels of these waterfalls? Our beaches are policed by coast guards only from 9 to 5. After that, consider it you're on your own. That can't be in a place where we are promoting tourism. These are the simple fix that we spoke of, where every single beach should have a lifeguard. Yeah? And the most visited waterfalls should have a lifeguard. That is not too much to ask for. The Tobagonian people, they are not asking much. That has not been budgeted for. No. It has not been budgeted for. Instead, they have budgeted to upgrade hotel stock rooms and boost cruise ship, and come on. Once you have a destination that is attractive enough, the world will make a beaten path to that destination. We spoke about agriculture. In agriculture, every district was supposed to have its own tractor, its own agricultural assistant living within that district. And so there are 15 districts. It means, therefore, we should have 15 tractors. 15 agricultural assistants in every single district. And these agricultural assistants were supposed to be working closely with the farmers to ensure that they produce not only for the table, but also for the market. We also spoke that when farmers would plant and they got a large return on their crops, we in the THA would have had marketing board buying all that they can produce and reselling it back on the market so as to make proper income for Tobago. Nowhere there. Nowhere they are boasting about having new equipment. New equipment doesn't farm lands. Having agricultural assistants spaced out doesn't farm lands. I've took a particular visit to Hope Farm, 600 acres of wasteland. 600 acres, Hope Farm. And you will hear the agricultural secretary talking glibly. What they have done every single week is a chow. Mango chow. Yeah? We have all kind of chow. Breadfruit chow. All kind of chow they have here. Wilkes chow. Every week is that chow. Every week. Come on. When are we going to really come and eat with me? The open big pot in Jim's partner. Come and eat with me. That's what they're doing. But how have they assisted the farmers? There are a lot of farm roads, the farmlands going in right in Hope there, that goes back to Mount St. George and comes down Green Hill. It's unkept. High grass, people can't access it. They are giving out big lands for mega farm to, I believe, to privileged people. And they have no idea as to what mega farm look like. Plagiarism with no purpose. That's what I call it. Borrowing ideas, and there's no purpose to. So how did they budget for that? How are they going to fix that issue? We spoke of even reactivating my goals, bro, where we had this tissue culture lab, and where we would have the best of the best crops being planted and harvested, and so Tobago would be known for its good produce. Not being done. Not being done at all. When I come to infrastructure, my colleague on that side across there, member for Scarborough, Mount Grace, hard-working man. When you listen to the presentation, you swear they were just talking about infrastructure alone. But even that is without rhyme or reason, without any methodology. They'll patch a hole in Speyside today, and tomorrow they'll patch one in Plymouth. And I don't know how they will skip over some and leave some. There's no method to the madness again. They will repave a road and leave some roads where over 20 houses are unpaved. Mud. How do we budget for that? How do we create prioritization on that is my question here. What is this budget about? Is it about the people? Or is it about just a performance, you know? We do this. We're going to spend more money again, more money to spend. Spend on what? We have not seen the returns on that. My friend, my colleague, member for Mason Hall, Mariah, they have not built any houses. They have not built any houses at all in the 3.5 years, but I can't blame him. Because with that budget as small, the smallest budget on the payroll, he can't build any houses. But then why are you carrying up the hopes of Tobagonians? Saying you're going to build 400 houses down Millshire, down there, and all this kind of stuff, and giving out keys to lands, of houses in Corlan. Well, not keys. Tell people the name called for lands in Corlan, and the name called for lands here and there, and houses, and nothing. I was shocked when I put on my TV in the week and I saw my friend from Palliative lands on his space side, all dressed up with a mic on his hand, as if he's playing the Wheel of Fortunes, telling people 90 lands are going to be given out this evening, 90 lands. Well, I say, wow, they work real fast. So I got my Moby and I sat back with my cake and I say, the man performing. But as he began to speak, I recognized he was really performing. He gave out 90 fictitious lands, no paper, no lease. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even know the land is. It is somewhere down in Kola, you see. And by his own admission, they are not going to survey the land. But he's giving out 90 lots of land. By his own admission. And he said it's a raffle. So I expect to see someone turning something as this, or some kind of a thing that has the human element of chance, or luck into it. I was really lucky into it. I remember so much. You know what happened? They claim that he claimed that somebody made some software. And the software will pull the names. He has nothing to do with it. And the name that I see called there, to me, it had something to do with it. We all understand algorithms now. Everybody knows that name, algorithms. And anybody who is making a software can create within it an algorithm. They didn't even have the decency to show you the list of names. All the names on the paper. Let's go back. They didn't even have the decency to announce 6 months before that all who want lands, sign up now. Here are the sheets. Sign up now. And your name will be placed in this particular system. And have a trial for the public to see. No one saw. All we saw is 90 names come out. And Tobago small. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew Tobago real small. We laughed at the names. How could that be random? How did they treat the people of Tobago so badly? There was no mean test. In a real world, that would have to be redone. They had to redo that. It is a miscarriage of justice to the Tobago people. Here we have a woman working CPEP, whose salary is $3,000 when the month comes. You are saying to her, well, you could get a piece of land, but have you done a means test? What is the price for that $70,000 land? And if you have to pay 40% of your salary, you have to pay less than $1,000, but anybody who's working CPEP, URP, that money is spent even before it lands in your hand. Because they are underpaid. It's not market rates, and it's not a living wage. So here we have it. You are giving people a opportunity to own land, but not the means by which they could own the land. The salary increase is rather in opposition to the ownership of the land. I want to call my good friend on the next side there, the member for Palataville, Lands on Space Side, the Chief Secretary, to redo that. Make it public and do it manually. And let's see how the results will come out. But don't give everything random. There are some people, you must just give them the land because they need it. And you create the same thing that we were doing before we got into power. Because on this side, you see right, on this side, you have the best view. When I was on this side, I took money from my pocket and I was fixing a roof. I was building houses for people from my pocket. And I was calling the PDP. Drain my account. Went quite in the bush, in the country. Somewhere up in Dalaford, Rudo side up there. Found a man on dirt ground, on a 2x4, I don't sleep at night with a dog inside, a galvanized 5x5 place. He's a farmer, the watchman, and the shooter at the same time. An old man in the 70s, I said, I can't live like this. I said, about to build a 15 by 20 house for the man, toilet and bath. Then he lived and enjoyed it, and he passed away. Thank God, he passed away in some level of decency. If you're going to give people something, give it to them. Right now, in Burkina Faso, the president there is building houses for people for free. In Libya, when the Gaddafi people was getting houses free, once you're married, you're getting for free. Right now in Dubai, once you're married, you're getting a house. What is the means test for giving people land or giving people access to house? Yes, some can be random. No props to that. But there must be a diligent means test where you categorize people. And from those categories, you must drop the name inside, let everyone know that, or put their name inside, and then you turn a little bit more visual. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to talk about the digital tech. Plenty buzzwords, no bandwidth. When we came in, we told persons that they will get paid on time. Everybody, CPEP, URP, whatever. Payment will be on time because the ACH, when I was leading the PSA, representing 80,000 workers, we use ACH all the time to pay people. And ACH is worked real quick, real quick. There's no delay in payment with that. But we have seen here that person working CPEP, URP, who are always paid 2 fortnights late. Right now I went inside this very same house here, the Assembly Legislature, trying to get something printed. And you know what? None of the printers working. None. None. You inside this house, Madam Presiding Officer, you are the captain of this ship. None of the printers working. Some men get ink, some old-fashioned. And we're talking about digitization, and we can't even get ink from machine. This is how we're fixing this. Bread and butter issues. Sometimes to get a little pay, people can't even get pay. A little contract you do, because there's not sufficient funds. We plan a budget. If you plan a budget, it should be on fixing things. And everything that you fix must be targeted. Not this big rehearsed dream every year. You want to do the same thing. You put it in different words. This is a rehearsed dream. Let me go a little further. Human capital. We have more certificates, like I said, and no jobs. They told us when we were small that education is the key. But education seems to be a lock and not a key. Something is wrong with our system. We came up with a plan that says we are going to get our young people, all who have graduated, put them into research groups based on what area you graduate in. Because one thing Tobago needs is plenty of research if we are going to become a modern-day society, a modern-day nation. We need to have plenty of people doing research. I've met some other doctorate, yeah, working in a shop, cleaning shelf, doctorate. There are many people here who are fully qualified, can't even work. We understand that. Even persons having medical degrees and still are unable to work. We have lawyers here and still unable to work. We have people with environmental engineering degrees and still unable to work. So what is the plan for them? Now that we have a budget, how are we going to plan for their future?
Member, you have 2 minutes remaining.
2 minutes? Wow. I think my good friend, of course, I got a 10 minutes notice. What I got was 2. I find it a little bit shallow. I accept it. 2 minutes notice for me. All right? In closing, Madam Presiding Officer, as the most senior member in this House, as a member who brought in both the Chief Secretary and the Deputy Chief Secretary and the others here. I'm sometimes disappointed about how we have become so callous, so blinded to what is happening around us. There is a song I want to close on. I'm not sure if I could find it there. But it's a song that says, the show is over now. Take a bow. As we come down to the election period, I want to let my colleagues know that Tobago will see this election as a day of reckoning. Don't think anybody owe you anything. People are very fickle. On Palm Sunday, they rejoice with Jesus. They take off their clothes and they begin to dance. So much some persons was vexed with them. And they say, where Christ? Where Christ? Let me make him king now. Christ disappeared, according to the Bible, from among them, because they wanted to make him king. By the Friday, we're talking Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every single body say, crucify him. Even Pilate, who was not in the crowd, who is not a supporter of Christ, said this man has done nothing wrong, clearly. This man is innocent. He said, no, what I'll do. We have Barabbas on this side, a man who is a criminal, known criminal. Do you want Christ or Barabbas? Make a choice. And he said, away with Christ. Give us Barabbas. Let them not be fooled. It's a lesson in human beings. Today, you could win. Tomorrow, you could lose. Be careful and make use of all of the opportunities you have to advance Tobago people, business. Thank you.
Assemblyman Natasha Charles-Banton, you may now join this debate.
May I use standing order 42.7?
Request approved.
A special greeting to you, Madam Presiding Officer, and to this honorable House. A warm and wholehearted thank you to my constituents of Bagatelle Bacalat, who have been serving consistently throughout the short period of 3.5 years in many ways. Lastly, a special thank you to my Assistant Secretary, Mr. Nigel Tate, and to all classification of workers at the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development, all its companies and all its partners who collectively ensure the smooth running of the division's operations. Madam Presiding Officer, as we align our work with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, from Zero Hunger, SDG 2, to Climate Action, SDG 13, from Responsible Consumption and Production, SDG 12, to Life on Land, SDG 15, we remain focused, firm, and future ready. I sincerely thank the Division of Finance, Trade, and Economy for proposing to make a capital investment of $131.4 million towards the island's agricultural sector for this upcoming fiscal. Since I assumed office, the Chief Secretary and the now Secretary of Finance, they have ensured that we as a division receive funds for development. In fact, this is the most this island would have seen in decades. However, the Financial Balancing Act has not been easy. Over the last 3 fiscals, the division's track record has been seen as the best performing division after being in the doldrums for decades and having to work with a nefarious, diabolical, and vindictive PNM central government who made sure that the Tobago House of Assembly remained grossly underfunded. The last 3.5 years in itself was a mountain to climb, or should I say, to the minority bench in their absence, a barrel to climb out of. However, each department team at the division stuck to it. We respected each other's positions and portfolios. We built trust, and when things got hard, we kept drinking water and minding Tobago business. The theme for the budget statement for this fiscal 2026 is accelerating growth, anchoring fiscal stability. In an attempt to realize these goals, the division in its 2026 budget presentation will continue its efforts by revitalizing, reorganizing, re-engineering, repurposing, and redeveloping the agricultural sector in Tobago using its 6 developmental pillars, and continue using our approach to treat agriculture as a science and a business. These pillars include infrastructural development and operational efficiency, human and social development, production, agro-processing, marketing, research and training, and agro-ecotourism. Infrastructural development and operational efficiency. Madam Presiding Officer, with aged infrastructure and archaic operating systems that were there for decades without any improvement, everything was completely run down. The division embarked on a journey to fix these things and address emergencies at the same time. Madam Presiding Officer, I wish to draw reference to the one Scarborough Central Market that was refurbished at over $36 million under the P&M administration. And it seems as if the P&M administration likes 36. And we all know what 36 represents in Playway. Madam Presiding Officer, I want this Honorable House to listen to what this TPP administration was able to accomplish under this division using less funds within 3.5 years. And I want to place on record, Madam Presiding Officer, that when we took office, in-house labor still had to do work on the Scarborough market. The haberdashery section of the market had to be covered. In this modern age, no Wi-Fi was installed there, so we had to do it. No new freezers, nothing, but they spent $36 million, and this is not the construction of it, this is just refurbishing. $36 million. And Madam Presiding Officer, the minority mentioned that he will be taking documents to the relevant authorities and all that. But let me stop here to say TAGCO is still missing the documents and we are hearing nothing from the minority. TAGCO is still missing documents. In an attempt to resuscitate the agricultural sector after we took office in December 2021, the Shore Park Food Hub was completed at a final cost, and these are approximate figures, $1.4 million VAT inclusive by a local contractor. Repair works to the workers' facility at Studley Park Nurseries was completed at a final cost of $359,000 VAT inclusive by a local contractor. Repair and upgrade to the Barbados Fish Facility was completed at a final cost of $1.5 million VAT inclusive by a local contractor. Construction of the Palatavere Fish Facility first phase construction was completed at a final cost of $820,000 VAT inclusive by a local contractor, with the second phase to begin in this July 2025 by another local contractor. Construction and upgrade of livestock pens at Louis Dore Demonstration Station, $648,000. Charlottesville Breeding Unit, $203,000. Hope Farm, $896,000 VAT inclusive, and all of this done by local contractors. Currently, additional work is being done by URP under the Small Ruminant Project. And while all of this going on, we had to do an emergency saga, some cleanup, which was initiated after the threshold for removal was met. Removal of 12,850 cubic yards in 11 days on 5 beaches: Speyside, Hope Beach, Milford Road, Scarborough, Little Rockcliffe Bay, and Magdalena Beachfront, using 9 local contractors at a final cost of $906,000 VAT inclusive. All local contractors I'm talking about here. Resumption of 15 agricultural access roads, 2.3 miles at Belmont Road and Mount St. George to Goodwood, using 6 local contractors at a cost of $11 million. Repair and upgrade to the Charlottesville Craft Market in collaboration with the Division of Works at a final cost of $137,000 by a local contractor, right? We had repairs and upgrades to the Roxborough Fish Facility at a final cost of $832,000 by a local contractor. repairs and upgrade to the Buko Fish Facility and Research Building at a final cost of $1.08 million, VAT inclusive by a local contractor. Construction of the Charlottesville Fish Facility Locker Storage, construction at a final cost of $552,000, VAT inclusive by a local contractor. Repairs to the Bloody Bay Rest Stop at a final cost of $703,000, VAT inclusive by a local contractor. And another emergency popped up, repairs of the sporadic cracks at the Scarborough Abattoir internally and externally. And that building was repaired at a final cost of $434,000, VAT inclusive by another local contractor. Repairs to the Buku Training Facility, recently renamed Tobago Agri-Technology Training Center, at a final cost of $1.1 million, VAT inclusive by a local contractor. Repairs to the Culloden Fish Facility at a final cost of $731,000 by a local contractor. The refurbishment of the Botanic Station office to house the Tobago Reforestation and Watershed Rehabilitation Company at a cost of $168,000. The Tobago Agri-Research Institute, formerly known as the Kendall Farm School, is currently undergoing repairs and is almost complete, with repairs being done by a local contractor. Payment and installation of pipes for pipe-borne water in Corland was completed, with the installation at Lamy Road and Belmont Farm Road through Wassa pending due to the last PNM government ensuring its delay. Recommissioned as the only working vessel available to assist the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard operations, Safari 3 vessel, repairs at a cost of $198,000 for the engines, $192,000 for materials and labor, and $5,000 spent for practical and sea trial sessions. Procurement and dispatching of 6 wheel tractors and implements, 1 excavator, 1 tractor trailer, 1 dump truck, 1 bucket truck, 3 brush cutters, 6 chainsaws at a cost of $6.6 million. And Madam Presiding Officer, I'm happy to reiterate that the waiting list for tractor services reduced from 300 farmers to be serviced in 2022 to less than 10 in 2025. Yeah. So could you imagine what this means for productivity, Madam Presiding Officer? With the assistance of Digital and Cardi, 2 bird squawkers to protect farmers from bird pests are currently deployed in cocoa fields and utilized by forestry when pest management services are required, with each bird squawker procured at $40,000. The acquisition of a veterinary ultrasound machine by the division to use for pregnancy diagnosis in livestock at a cost of $180,000, and a stereo microscope and laparoscopy was donated by the Embryo Project, for the Embryo Project, with the Cubans valued at $10,000 US. Under TADCO, the repair of the Capital of Paradise at a cost of $643,000, the repair of ice machines at Castara and Charlottesville at a cost of $92,000, and the repair of the Shore Park packing house using in-house labor at TADCO. The Shore Park packing house is now offering industrial grinding services and supporting the community care program where fresh produce is purchased from Tobago farmers. Yeah, so that Roxborough again, right? So farmers' produce are being purchased. Installation of 2 med stations at Roxborough and Corland. Stations give real-time data on weather conditions. Distribution of 90 smart self-watering units to 57 schools geared towards introducing modern agricultural techniques for youths. Other projects include the installation of solar panels at the Bloody Bay Rest Stop in partnership with UNDP. The science lab at Speyside High School was outfitted with a solar system. A solar water heater was installed at the Speyside High School with a solar system, and a 15 kilowatt standalone solar system installed at the Charlottesville Methodist Primary School, and in partnership with the Ministry of Energy, Scarborough Methodist, Signal Hill Government Primary, Castara Government Primary, and Bishop's High School was outfitted with a 7 kilowatt solar PV system to build climate resilience and support disaster management preparedness in light of climate change. On to human and social development. In 2022, the same reforestation workers you referred to, they had outstanding fortnightly wages about 9 months, so that was paid up. and their wages were increased, their rates were increased. Also, under the division's development program, the cocoa rehabilitation project, mistletoe control program, access roads workers, all experience increase in wages. As a matter of fact, a known PNM supporter hugged me up in the road and she said, thank God I'll win because I finally get a wage increase. Under access roads, 37 workers benefited. I mean, the wage increase, that would improve the standard of living of the entire families, yeah? Providing for more productive and comfortable and satisfying, environment to work, yeah? TADCO's Food Box Initiative, a 6-month pilot project, was rolled out in 2022, and it has now transformed into the community care program that now accepts local agricultural produce from farmers and commodities from local agro-processors who now have access to packing house services at Shore Park. This new project is being executed by workers under the Division of Food Security, TADCO and TAGS, and there's a meaningful partnership with the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, where members of different communities have volunteered for this holistic community care program, where each person's health is monitored regularly. Madam Presiding Officer, all this additional work done, money spent, impact felt, growth achieved. You know why? No demand for $1 million kickback. So you say the 36 million we're talking about? 1 building refurbished. Moving on to production, Madam Presiding Officer, remember I mentioned previously that I met aged infrastructure and archaic operating systems at the stations of the division. And the stations were originally set up to demonstrate to the farming community how agriculture production is done. So they are demonstration stations, yeah, not competing with the private sector. We are in the year of our Lord 2025, and not one single station has agri-technology methods on the station in terms of production or collecting any data in any way. And that is why we created TARI and TAGS. So, in terms of the commodities as a result of demonstration, in 2022, we had 30,968 dozens being produced, dozens of eggs being produced on Kendall, Louisville, and Hope Farm. And in 2025, it increased to 59,000. So from 30,000 to 59,000 in 2024. So that means we're doing a lot of demonstration. We actually have small ruminants on this station as breeding stock. And in terms of cattle, goats, in some cases we had none. So with the refurbishing of the pens, we're now starting to restock. So even if I quote a percentage, it wouldn't give you a real figure. Because if I say sheep, we have 85 sheep, 944%, that wouldn't make sense, yeah? Because we now have breeding stock. We didn't have these things before. And with the building out of the pens, we'll have more animals under the small ruminant project. Under TADCO Poultry Farming Initiative, over 150 poultry farmers supported, and in 1 year slaughtering 46,531 birds. In terms of the tissue culture lab you spoke about, currently repairs are being done there, and over the period 2022 to 2024, they produce 182,000 plants, contributing significantly to crop propagation and revenue generation. Louisville nurseries achieved 474,887 in revenue during that same period from ornamentals, vegetable and orchard crop sales. And this is heavily subsidized because this is what you give to people, the buying public. Tractor pool serviced over 326.35 hectares through plowing, brush cutting and banking, with customer numbers rising from 82 in 2022 to 224 in 2024. Under TADCO, the capital of Paradise 1 reported 25 successful operations and generated over US $300,000 during that period, and it engages in regional export of fish to St. Vincent, and soon Barbados will receive fish, including flying fish. Agro-processing. Madam Presiding Officer, the minority leader can now visit TADCO to purchase products made by local agro-processors that not only meet international standards, but can compete with products anywhere in the world. Madam Presiding Officer, this is the new Tobago this administration has set out to build, ensuring Tobago becomes the greatest little island on the planet. The board and management at TADCO reported that some of these products will soon be found in the duty-free section at the Piarco Airport. And yeah. So TADCO is now the local meat and agro-processor shop. Yeah. Cassava mash, cassava logs, corn mix, plantain cake mix, cassava waffle mix, dasheen waffle mix, sweet potato waffle mix, breadfruit waffle mix, and not chow, mix, dasheen cereal, cassava kumar, cassava fruit cake, cassava crack wheat bread, cassava composite bread, farine, cassava farine ice cream, cassava pone ice cream. You have local whole chicken, local chicken parts, local pork, local goat, local beef, local lamb, green seasoning, dried seasoning, pepper sauce, all these things local. Garlic sauce, local teas, local honey, essence, tamarind sauce, amchar, punches, juices, and eggs, no chow. TADCO has a feeding depot as well. Pullet grower, pig grower, swine grower, high performance feed, all purpose feed, dairy, ration, wheat, crack corn, molasses. And once you have a farmer's badge, you get a discount. Marketing, research, and training. The establishment and rollout of RADIS, Research and Development Information System, to assist with the policy and decision-making of the division. Tobago Agricultural Research Initiative has 3 distinct pillars of focus. It's an avenue for agriculture education on the island, extension and outreach, research, development, and innovation in agriculture. An MOU was signed with UTT to deliver certificate courses, any level, diploma, degree, any level, even certificates in agro-processing. You can get it now at TARI. And these are linked to the incentives such as the Youth in Agriculture grant. And this MOU makes it easier for Tobagonians to pursue higher level education in agriculture right here on the island without having to go to Trinidad. The new company, Tobago Agri-Technology Services, hosted its first Agri-Tech Summit in December 2024, and it has now moved to the newly upgraded Tobago Agri-Technology Center in Buku, making access to agriculture, education, and training easier in Tobago, and particularly in the West. The Tobago Agro Incentive Program, designed by the division and approved by Executive Council, and now administered by the Division of Finance. Another achievement. Creation of a weekly digital marketing hub, vendors list, showcasing vendors' name, contact, commodities, and available quantities. Regular posting of the retail prices for selected commodities at the Scarborough market. Under forestry, bird banding workshops, GIS training, bio-reach, wildfire management training, lectures to port security officers, to the defense force, precepting our officers, especially in forestry. Staff training in pig production, pineapple, herbs, and spices. No chows, no chows. Banana field practices, right? Frosty pod management, field management in cocoa. We trained 23 officers to use Kobo toolbox for animal health monitoring and farm mapping. Early warning system training in classical and African swine fever, which is a collaboration with ICA and UE. Embryo transfer demonstration in sheep in partnership with FAO and Cuban specialists. Tractor pull caravan. The tractors go to all the schools, teaching children how to do land preparation and to identify farm machinery. FAO banana and sweet potato intercrop demonstration. School feeding resilience program. We have the train the trainers program. 40 farmers and 5 technical staff have been trained so far. Open day for onion trial at Goldsboro Station, training on best practices for onion production. Cardi germplasm training on yam trials established. Extension services, 8 staff training sessions on wastewater management and innovative agriculture. Animal health unit, 4 to 5 training sessions held annually. At TARI, 27 courses offered with 934 participants from 2022 to 2025. TADCO, under TADCO, over 1,000 trained in poultry health and slaughter management, food safety for butchers, and master butcher training. So now you could get specialty cuts in beef and pigs and pork. The home gardening team, yes, and pork. The home gardening team executed training and demonstration sessions on crop production for inmates at the Tobago Prison Service, and we do it from time to time because we have to train the prisoners as well. Agro-ecotourism potential, lamb festival, no lamb chow, just lamb festival, where we purchase all the meats from local farmers. It is prepared for sale by local caterers. It's an investment because we want to prevent the sheep from going down to Trinidad and the goat. Right? We want to keep it in Tobago. Yeah? Main-Rich Forest Fitness Challenge held biannually. We also developed a fee structure for the botanical gardens for Corland Heritage Park and for Little Tobago. Right? So we finally have implemented a user fee for them. And of course, you could utilize this space for movie nights and Christmas glitz. Yeah? So we are also looking at Bloody Bay Orientation Center, right? Right, for now it's free to go up there. But you know, you would have foreigners coming in, so we want to capitalize on that type of fee implementation. So let's talk a bit about the future projects. Madam Presiding Officer. Now this was just a snapshot of what this administration was able to accomplish through this division. And time wouldn't permit me to talk about every activity of each department or unit. But for the future, we plan to repair and configure the Louis-d'Or processing facility to support agro-processing in the east. And that project will commence in July. So the minority spoke about that. The project will start next week, within the month of July 2025. The construction of the Mason Hall Food Hub to facilitate farmers' market, retail market, and partial transportation hub. It will serve as a centralized facility to support agricultural production, distribution, and marketing of local produce. That project to commence this July as well. The Roxborough Food Hub designs are complete and will go out for tender as soon as we get the approvals. Tractor pool facilities are in a deplorable state, I agree, and it is in an urgent need of repair. That project will start next month. The division is in receipt of designs for the construction of the veterinary diagnostic laboratory at the government stock farm in Hope. This lab will cater for all animals, including companion animals, and will operate in a way that will not compete with the private sector, but provide subsidized services that vets can also access. We propose to increase the subvention for the Tobago Agricultural Society to assist with supporting initiatives of partnering agricultural associations, such as the Farmers Market at Goldsboro. The division completed the conceptual design of the agro park at Friendship, which will include shade houses, a packing house, and other technologies used in agriculture. And we're not going to mirror anything in Trinidad. I know that the minority spoke about a youth in agriculture program in Trinidad, where over 1,000 youths were supposed to inherit land and all these fancy things that they never got. As a matter of fact, there's no production happening there. So under this mega farming program, where we do have a proper system in place, you sign up different online platforms, there's a mega farming link, an assessment is done, and we give letters of intent through this system, right? So persons who wish to pursue a career path in agriculture, this is an opportunity for them. So the infrastructure will be in place. You don't have to worry about the shade house, where you're getting the money from, and if you're getting a grant, you don't no longer have to worry about that. You have to worry, we're going to train you under Tarian tags so that you can do meaningful agriculture. The division also plans to upgrade the Louis-d'Or demonstration building, the plant pisciculture, Runnymede breeding unit, Goldsboro processing facility, and all the other fish facilities. Installation of washroom facilities at King Peter's Bay Beach.
Member, you have 3 minutes remaining.
That tender will go out as well. The repair of additional vessels to assist with marine park monitoring and wildlife patrols. The assessment of community needs and the formation of partnerships with the relevant community stakeholders towards the implementation of an improved recycling program, including a Keeper Green School Award program. We are going to increase conservation efforts and financial support for the protection of sea turtles and other endangered species. The expansion of the home garden unit as its role towards food sovereignty on the island is extremely important. Its role in training the community on scientific farming is important, and it gives priority to the needs of those who consume nutritious food over profit-driven interests. The establishment of local seed banks to preserve and promote the use of indigenous and traditional crop varieties. And Madam Presiding Officer, as I close, I want to encourage everyone to not be misguided by the minority bench. We're on a good path. I believe we are on a strong path towards revitalizing agriculture. So I want to encourage everyone to stand united as one Tobago, steadfast in our mission to cultivate resilience and food sovereignty. From Friendship Agro Park to Corland Farmland Development, from Belmont Estate to Runnymede, from Charlottesville to Hope, we are planting the seeds of transformation. And Tobago's harvest will be prosperous for generations to come under the Tobago People's Party. And this prosperity will ensure Tobago truly becomes the greatest little island on the planet. Madam Presiding Officer, I thank you.
Leader of Assembly Business.
Madam Presiding Officer, I beg to move that this House now stands suspended for 30 minutes.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that we suspend for lunch for 30 minutes. All in favor say aye. Any against say no. The ayes have it. This House now stands suspended for 30 minutes.